Eddard Stark tasted blood where his teeth had cut the inside of his cheek. The air smelled of sweat, incense, and sun-warmed stone. He could hear the city breathing around him, thousands of lives pressed close enough that even the murmurs seemed to push against his skin. Somewhere below the steps, a child cried and was hushed. Somewhere above, a raven turned in the bright sky, an indifferent black speck. His knees ached. The iron around his wrists was heavy and unforgiving. Yet the weight that sat heaviest was not the chain. It was the knowledge of what his words had done. Treason, he had called it, his own honor hauled up like a corpse dragged from the Blackwater. He had confessed because Varys had whispered that Sansa Stark would pay for pride, and because Cersei Lannister's smile had promised it would not be her who paid. The High Septon's voice drifted like thin smoke, wrapping holy words around cruelty so it might appear clean. Eddard Stark scarcely heard it. His eyes found Sansa Stark, and in that searching he tried to tell her what he could not say, live. His daughter's face was pale as milk in the sun. Her lips parted as if she could not draw breath enough. When their eyes met, she looked struck, as though the sight of him still kneeling, still believing had reached into her and twisted. Joffrey Baratheon leaned forward on the carved stone of the balustrade. A boy in a crown, all sharp bones and sharper vanity, dressed as a king so perfectly that the city nearly believed the costume. His mouth made a small, pleased line, as if each heartbeat on those steps belonged to him. "My mother bids me show mercy," Joffrey Baratheon called, and the sound of his voice carried farther than a blade. "They say the king must be wise." A hush fell, the kind of hush that begged for blood. Eddard Stark felt the world tighten. He had expected the moment when Island Pain would step forward, the moment when steel would become a mercy. He had braced himself to die so his daughters might not. He had told himself that death was the last service he could render to the living. Joffrey Baratheon turned his head toward Queen Cersei Lannister, and for a heartbeat the boy's face showed the petulance beneath the crown. Then he looked back down at Eddard Stark as if down at a thing. "But I am the king," Joffrey Baratheon said, and his smile widened with sudden invention. "And I will have my own mercy." The crowd stirred, confusion first, then hunger again as they sensed some new sport. "I will not kill you today," Joffrey Baratheon said. "No, I will keep you. Eddard Stark will live." For a half-breath, the words did not fit the world. They hung there, absurd as summer snow. Then they began to change shape as the people understood what a king meant when he spared a man he had already broken. Eddard Stark lifted his head. The sun flashed along the edge of Island Pain's greatsword as the headsman shifted, not from eagerness but from uncertainty. Even Ser Island seemed caught by surprise, his blank face giving nothing away. "Joffrey," Queen Cersei Lannister began, soft and sharp, a warning dressed as a plea. Joffrey Baratheon ignored her. He spread his hands like a mummer about to unveil a trick. "He will be a lesson," Joffrey Baratheon said. "He will be shown to the realm. He will sit in a cage outside my gates where all may see what becomes of traitors. The North will look south and remember who holds their lord's life in his hand." A ripple ran through the gold cloaks as if even their rough hearts were unsettled by the idea of a Lord of Winterfell in a cage like a bear. Then they steadied. Men always steadied when a king spoke, because steadiness was safer than thought. Sansa Stark made a small sound, not joy, not relief, something raw and strangled between them. She clutched at Queen Cersei Lannister's sleeve as though drowning. Eddard Stark felt the knife twist. Alive meant time. Time meant leverage. Leverage meant pain for those he loved. He had given up his honor to save his children, and now the boy king had found a way to keep the children and keep him too. Joffrey Baratheon pointed, careless as a child pointing at a dog. "Take him back," he commanded, "and tell the city to come see mercy." When the gold cloaks hauled Eddard Stark to his feet, the chains bit his wrists. He did not stumble. He would not give them the pleasure. But when he was dragged away from the lip of the steps, he heard the crowd begin to shout again. Some disappointed, some laughing, some jeering as if this new cruelty were finer entertainment than death. Queen Cersei Lannister's face had turned to stone. Ser Sandor Clegane's mouth curled, not in amusement but in contempt, as if he had always known what kings were. And Joffrey Baratheon watched Eddard Stark go with the bright-eyed satisfaction of a boy who had found a living toy. The descent from the September felt longer than any ride he had taken through the Riverlands. The city was all angles and stink, all hard laughter and soft threats. The stone steps gave way to cobbles, the cobbles to muddy alleys where refuse pooled in the Hollow's King's Landing had teeth, and it took small bites from the men who walked it. Filth on their boots, spit on their cloaks, eyes on their backs. Eddard Stark's chain was looped through the hand of a gold cloak like a lead on a dog. The man did not yank him often, but the constant pressure was its own humiliation. The streets pressed close. Faces turned. Some had seen him at the September and followed, hungry for the next moment. Others learned from the flow of people and pushed in with the instinct of a mob. "Traitor!" someone shouted. "Wolf!" someone else answered, and laughed. A rotten apple struck his shoulder and burst. The juice ran down his sleeve, sticky and sour. Another object, harder, caught him behind the ear. His vision flashed white. He kept his feet. The gold cloaks snarled at the crowd, shoving them back with spear hafts. "Back!" they barked. "Make way for the king's justice." Justice. Eddard Stark had once believed in words. Now he knew the way they were used, how a king could take a clean word and wrap it around something that stank. He caught glimpses through the press. A woman with a baby on her hip, staring as if trying to memorize the look of a great lord brought low. A boy not much older than Bran Stark had been, grinning with fascination. A man with one eye, chewing on a bone, watching as if he were considering the price of a living prisoner. Above them, banners snapped, stags and lions, the colors bright and false in the sunlight. The red keep loomed at the top of the city like a clenched fist. At a turn where the street widened, Eddard Stark saw her. Sansa Stark, pale as winter dawn, half carried by Ser Sandor Clegane's brute hold. Her hand stretched out and then stopped, as if she had been struck by invisible chains too. "Father," she whispered, and it was almost lost beneath the noise. Eddard Stark tried to answer. He found only air. The gold cloaks pushed him forward. Queen Cersei Lannister walked behind Sansa Stark, serene as a blade in its sheath. Her eyes met Eddard Stark's once, and there was triumph there, yes, but also calculation, cold as the sea at winter's edge. She was already measuring what a living Ned Stark might buy her, what it might cost. When they passed a sept at the corner, the smell of burning tallow drifted out. Eddard Stark remembered another sept, another city, when he had been young and Robert Baratheon had laughed like thunder. Robert had loved life too much to imagine how it could be used against men. Robert was dead, and his son wore his name like stolen armor. They brought Eddard Stark through the gates of the Red Keep, past guards who stared with hard curiosity, past servants who lowered their eyes as if shame might be contagious. The courtyard stones were cleaner, the air less foul, but the cruelty did not lessen with the stink. Inside the keep the corridors narrowed. Torches hissed. Shadows pooled in corners. The gold cloak's boots clacked like a drumbeat, leading him toward whatever Joffrey Baratheon had decided a living hostage should be. When they reached the black cells, the door groaned open like an old wound. Cold air breathed out. The dark smelled of damp and iron. Eddard Stark stepped down, down, until even the echoes felt muffled. "Here," said one of the men, and shoved him into a cell. The door slammed. The sound rang through him. In the dark, Eddard Stark pressed his forehead to the stone and tried to understand what it meant to live when living had become a punishment. Time lost its shape in the black cells. Without sun, without bells, the hours became a slow drip like water seeping through stone. Eddard Stark's wrists swelled where the manacles held him. His shoulders burned from being chained too long in one posture. The cold had a patience the living did not. It crawled into his joints and made his bones ache as if winter itself had decided to move in. He slept in fits, waking at every sound. The scrape of a rat, the clank of a distant chain, the far-off scream of someone else remembering they were alive. Food came when it came, Thin broth, stale bread, sometimes a strip of meat too salted to taste like anything but thirst. He drank from a wooden bowl that never seemed clean, and the water tasted faintly of mold. On the third, he thought it was the third visit from the guards, the door opened and light spilled in. Eddard Stark blinked until the world stopped stinging. Varys stood at the bars, soft as silk, his hands folded as if he had come to pray. "My lord," Varys said gently, "you are alive." Eddard Stark's laugh was rough. "That is plain." Varys tilted his head, the expression sympathetic enough to fool men who wanted sympathy. "Alive is change. Alive is possibility. Alive is a cage," Eddard Stark said. "Yes," Varys agreed, as if the word were a kindness. "But cages have locks, locks have keys, and keys have hands." Eddard Stark stared at him. He had always distrusted the spider, and yet it was Varys who had told him to confess. Varys who had saved his daughter's lives by turning him into a coward in the eyes of the realm. Now Varys stood here like a physician returning to inspect the patient he had cut. "Why?" Eddard Stark asked. "Why does he keep me?" Varys's mouth twitched. "Joffrey Baratheon believes he has discovered a new kind of power. He does not yet understand old power. He thinks fear is a leash that never snaps." "And you?" Eddard Stark asked. "What do you think?" Varys leaned in closer, torchlight gilding the curve of his cheek. "I think a living wolf is more dangerous than a dead one, my lord. Even in a cage." Eddard Stark's hands clenched as far as the chains allowed. "My daughters are safe," Varys said quickly. "As safe as any flower kept in a lion's den. Sansa Stark is valuable. Arya Stark is missing." The word struck like a blow. Missing. Varys's eyes held apology without heat. "Lost in the city when the swords came out. We have men searching. Quiet men." Eddard Stark's throat tightened. He pictured Arya Stark's fierce face, the way she had refused embroidery for a sword. He pictured her small body swallowed by this city, by its hunger. Varys went on, soft as poison in honey. "Joffrey Baratheon wants you to write. He wants letters to the north. He wants you to tell them to kneel. He wants your hand to do what his sword did not." "I will not," Eddard Stark said, and surprised himself with how steady the words sounded even here. Varys nodded, as though he had expected it. "Then Joffrey Baratheon will find other ways to make you right." Eddard Stark stared at the torch, at the flame trembling in the draft. "If he hurts Sansa Stark," Varys's face smoothed, "then the realm will learn what kind of king sits the Iron Throne. Some lessons are slow, my lord, but they are learned." Eddard Stark's jaw tightened. "Tell me something true, spider, not your riddles. Is there any path that ends with my daughters free?" Varys was silent long enough that Eddard Stark could hear water dripping somewhere beyond the wall. Then Varys said very softly, "There are paths, but they will require men to do terrible things for love." Eddard Stark closed his eyes. In the dark behind his lids he saw Robb Stark's face, saw Jon Snow's, saw Theon Greyjoy's sharp smile. He saw Catelyn Stark standing tall like a spear. He wondered which of them would be forced into terribleness, and whether that was what the realm demanded now. When Varys left, the door shut and the dark returned. But the spider's words remained, crawling through Eddard Stark's thoughts like little feet. They did not keep him in the black cells forever. Joffrey Baratheon's imagination was not satisfied by darkness no one could see. On the morning they came for him, the guards were brisk, almost excited. They hauled him up the stairs into a world of blinding light. The sun struck his face like an accusation. Eddard Stark swayed for a moment, and someone laughed. They washed him with cold water that felt like knives, combed his hair as if preparing him for court, and dressed him in rough, clean cloth that was neither noble nor beggar, a costume for humiliation. When they led him into the courtyard, he saw the cage. It was iron, square, and tall enough for a man to stand but not to stretch. Bars thick as a man's wrist, a lock heavy as a maul. It sat near the main gates of the Red Keep where every cart and every visitor would pass. where the city could come to stare at the fallen hand of the king like a bear trained to dance. Small folk had gathered already, pressed against a rope line held by gold cloaks. Their faces were bright with curiosity. Some looked uneasy, as if this went too far. Others looked delighted, because cruelty always found an audience. Eddard Stark's stomach turned. He had been a lord, a father, a man with duties. Now he was to be a lesson nailed up for all to study. "On your feet, wolf," one of the guards muttered, and shoved him forward. From above, the balcony held a cluster of bright figures. Joffrey Baratheon lounged in his finery, the crown too large for his narrow brow. Queen Cersei Lannister stood at his shoulder, her face calm, her eyes bright as coins. Ser Sandor Clegane was there, hulking and still, a shadow made flesh. Sansa Stark stood behind them all, like a pale ghost in silk. Eddard Stark looked up at his daughter. She clutched her hands together as if prayer might change iron. When their eyes met, she shook once, almost imperceptibly, as though she begged him to do whatever was required. Eddard Stark's heart tore. This was why Joffrey Baratheon had spared him, to force choices that would rot a man from the inside. Joffrey Baratheon leaned over the railing, pleased with himself. "There he is," he called. "The traitor, the man who sought my father's death." A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone spat. Eddard Stark's hands clenched. He would not flinch at lies. He had swallowed worse. "I have granted him mercy," Joffrey Baratheon announced. "He will live. He will be here for all to see. And every raven that flies north will carry the same message. Your lord lives because I allow it. Your lord breathes because I am kind." Kind. The word tasted like ash. The guards shoved Eddard Stark toward the cage. The door creaked open. The iron smelled of new forge and old rust. He stepped inside without stumbling. The lock clanged shut behind him. The sound was final. A bell without hope. The crowd surged closer. Faces pressed to bars. Fingers poked through to touch his sleeve, as if to prove he was real. A woman whispered a prayer. A man laughed. A boy mimicked a wolf howl and was cuffed by his mother, not out of shame but out of fear. Above, Joffrey Baratheon clapped slowly, delighted with his own theater. Queen Cersei Lannister's gaze flicked across the crowd, measuring reactions like a merchant weighing coin. Ser Sandor Clegane watched Eddard Stark with an expression that might have been pity if he were capable of such softness. Eddard Stark stood straight, hands wrapped around the cold bars, and made himself a wall inside the cage. If he could not be free, he could at least refuse to be small. Dusk turned kings landing copper and bruise purple. The courtyard emptied as the day's visitors grew tired of staring. Guards remained, their spears planted, their talk low. The cage stood like an insult against the darkening sky. Eddard Stark had not sat. He had stood until his legs trembled and then leaned against the bars, letting iron hold what his body could no longer. His throat was raw from thirst. His eyes burned from wind and smoke. Every time he closed them, he saw the moment the cage door shut and heard the lock over and over. Footsteps approached, lighter than a guard's, hesitant. He opened his eyes. Sansa Stark stood before the bars, wrapped in a cloak too fine for the chill. Her hair braided as if courtly order could keep the world from unraveling. Behind her, Ser Sandor Clegane loomed like a threat given legs. A few paces away, Queen Cersei Lannister watched from the mouth of a corridor where torchlight gilded her hair. Sansa Stark's face crumpled when she saw him close. She pressed her fingers to the bars, careful not to touch his hands as if afraid the iron might bite her too. "Father," she whispered. Eddard Stark swallowed. "Sansa Stark." Her eyes filled. They said the king was merciful." Eddard Stark held her gaze. "Mercy is not what he thinks it is." Sansa Stark's breath shuddered. "He makes me look at it," she said very softly. "He brings me here and asks me if I'm grateful. He smiles when I cry. He says I should sing." Eddard Stark's hands tightened on the bars. Somewhere behind his ribs, something hot and animal began to rise. "Listen to me," he said, leaning closer. You will live. You will keep your head down and your words sweet, even when they taste foul. You will live, and you will remember. Remember what? Sansa Stark asked. Who he is, Eddard Stark said, and who you are. Queen Cersei Lannister's voice drifted from the corridor, calm as a lake with depthless cold. Lovely, truly, a father's counsel. Eddard Stark did not look away from his daughter. Where is Arya Stark? He demanded. Queen Cersei Lannister smiled faintly. If I knew Lord Eddard Stark, you would not be asking. Sansa Stark's eyes widened. Arya? Eddard Stark felt his own fear spill into his voice despite his will. She's missing. The spider told me. Sansa Stark's hands flew to her mouth. A sound escaped her that was half sob, half gasp. Queen Cersei Lannister stepped closer, the torchlight following her like obedient fire. Your younger daughter is willful, she said. Perhaps she has run to some gutter to play at being a boy. She always did lack your sense. Eddard Stark's gaze finally snapped to her. If you have harmed her, Queen Cersei Lannister's smile sharpened. You forget where you are, Lord Eddard Stark. You are in an iron cage at my son's gates. Your threats are quaint. Ser Sandor Clegane shifted his weight, his helm hiding whatever expression he had. For a moment, Eddard Stark thought the man might speak. He did not.
Sansa Stark leaned in, desperate.
Father, please, she whispered. Write to Robb Stark. Tell him to lay down his sword. They say if the North obeys, you can go to the wall. Eddard Stark's heart clenched. Here it was the price, the choice. His life as bait on a hook that could catch the North. I will not buy my life with the North's submission, Eddard Stark said, and the words tasted like old honor, bitter and stubborn. Sansa Stark's tears fell freely. Then what do we do? Eddard Stark drew in a slow breath, forcing his voice gentle. We endure, he said, and we wait for a moment. Moments come even in cages. Queen Cersei Lannister's eyes glittered. Moments, she echoed, amused. Yes, they do. She turned away, taking Sansa Stark with her. Ser Sandor Clegane followed, and for an instant as he passed, the hound's head tilted toward Eddard Stark, so slight it might have been imagined. Then he was gone, and dusk deepened, and the cage held its prisoner beneath a sky that did not care. The next day brought a new scent to the courtyard, horse sweat and travel dust, the smell of roads and restless men. A small party rode through the gates, banners snapping. Lions always lions. Tyrion Lannister dismounted with a grunt that was half pain and half humor. He looked up, squinting against the light, and his gaze landed on the cage. Eddard Stark watched him approach. Tyrion Lannister's size made him seem almost out of place in the grand yard, but his presence carried weight. There was a sharpness in his eyes, a mind that moved fast enough to cut. Well, Tyrion Lannister called up, voice carrying easily. This is a rather dramatic way to redecorate the gate. Eddard Stark's mouth was too dry for a reply. He simply stared. Tyrion Lannister's expression shifted, the mockery thinning into something more appraising. You look worse than I remember, he said, and then added almost gently. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as a statement of the crown's taste. Behind Tyrion Lannister, Bronn leaned against a pillar as if the scene amused him. The Sellsword's eyes flicked over the guards, over the lock, over the balcony, always measuring. Above, Joffrey Baratheon appeared, drawn by the arrival like a moth to flame. He leaned over the railing, pleased. Uncle, he called, as if the word were a leash. Tyrion Lannister looked up and smiled in a way that held no warmth. Your Grace, he said. I see you've found a new pastime. Joffrey Baratheon's grin widened. He's a traitor, the boy king said. He deserves to be seen. Tyrion Lannister spread his hands. Certainly, but must the realm's sense of spectacle be satisfied at the Red Keep's expense? A cage at the gate is unsightly. Queen Cersei Lannister emerged beside Joffrey Baratheon like a shadow made golden. Tyrion, she said, and the name was a warning dressed as affection. Tyrion Lannister tipped his head. Sister. Cersei Lannister's eyes did not leave his. "Our son is king," she said softly. "He decides how mercy is given." Tyrion Lannister's gaze flicked to Eddard Stark and then back. "Mercy," he echoed. "Yes, I hear the word is fashionable." Joffrey Baratheon's face reddened. "He will write," the boy said. "He will tell his son to kneel. He will beg me." Tyrion Lannister's smile sharpened. "Will he?" Joffrey Baratheon's hand clenched on the stone rail. "He will," he insisted, and there was fear under the insistence. A child terrified of a toy that refused to break. Tyrion Lannister turned his eyes upward to Eddard Stark. For a moment, the dwarf's face was unreadable. Then he said, loud enough for all to hear, "If you mean to keep him alive, at least keep him alive properly. A corpse would be easier to manage than a living man you insist on starving." Cersei Lannister's jaw tightened. Tyrion Lannister lifted a hand. "I'm not asking permission, dear sister. I'm informing you that if this farce continues, it ought to be conducted with some intelligence." He looked up again, meeting Eddard Stark's eyes through the bars. "I would say it's good to see you again," Tyrion Lannister called. "But I fear that would be the cruelest jest of all." Eddard Stark found his voice at last, scraped raw from his throat. "Why are you here?" he asked. Tyrion Lannister's eyes narrowed slightly. "To keep my nephew from setting fire to the realm," he answered, "and to keep my sister from pretending he won't." He took a step closer to the cage, lowering his voice though the guards still listened. "You're a valuable hostage, Lord Eddard Stark," he said. "Try not to die. It would ruin everyone's plans." Eddard Stark stared down. "I have no plans," he said. Tyrion Lannister's smile faded. "That," he said softly, "is precisely the problem. Night in King's Landing was never truly dark. The city glowed with torchlight and hearthfire, with lanterns and brothels, with the feverish insistence of men who feared silence. Even the stars seemed dulled by smoke." Eddard Stark had learned the rhythm of the cage. Morning crowds, midday taunts, afternoon boredom, evening quiet, night watchmen muttering. He had learned that hunger could become a dull ache rather than a sharp pain if you did not think about it too much. He had learned that the worst moments were not when someone threw something, but when someone looked at him with pity, because pity made him feel like a thing already dead. That night the air carried a strange tension. Voices rose from beyond the red keep walls, distant but swelling, like a tide turning. A shout, then another, the faint crash of something breaking. The city's anger had found a new pulse. Varys slipped through the courtyard shadows as if the dark belonged to him. He stopped before the cage, his round face upturned. "My lord," Varys murmured. "The city is restless." Eddard Stark's lips were cracked. "The city is always restless." "Not like this," Varys said. "Bread is scarce. The people blame the crown. They speak your name." Eddard Stark's eyes narrowed. "They spit it," he said. Varys's gaze flicked sideways, as if listening to a conversation far away. "Some spit," he agreed. "Some pray." Eddard Stark tightened his fingers on the bars. "Where is Arya Stark?" he demanded again, because the question ate him. Varys's face tightened for the briefest moment. "Still unseen," he admitted. "But there are whispers. A girl in a boy's cut. A girl with mud on her cheeks. A girl who bit a man's hand when he tried to touch her." Eddard Stark's breath caught. He did not let himself hope too hard. Hope here was a knife pointed inward. Beyond the wall, the shouting grew louder. A roar rose and fell like a beast's breath. Varys leaned closer, voice low. "Lord Eddard Stark," he said, "there are ravens leaving the city tonight. Some for the Riverlands, some for Dragonstone." Eddard Stark stared at him. "Stannis Baratheon," he said, tasting the name like a possibility. Varys's smile was faint. "Names are dangerous," he said. "So are lies," Eddard Stark answered. Varys's eyes glittered. "Yes," he agreed, "which is why a living witness is such an inconvenience." From the shadows of a nearby archway, Tyrion Lannister stepped forward. his silhouette outlined by torchlight. Bronn followed, easy and quiet, hand near his sword as if even talk could turn bloody. "You're giving him ideas," Tyrion Lannister said to Varys. Varys looked delighted. "My lord hand," he purred. "I would never." Tyrion Lannister's gaze locked on Eddard Stark. "The city is boiling," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Joffrey Baratheon thinks a crown makes him invincible. Doesn't. It just makes him visible." Eddard Stark watched him. "Then do something," he said, and the bitterness surprised him. "If you fear him so much, stop him." Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted. "I'm trying," he said, "but stopping a king is like stopping a fire once it has found oil." A loud crack sounded beyond the wall, followed by screams. The sound rippled through the courtyard. Guards shifted, gripping spears tighter. Varys's hands folded. "If the city breaks," he said softly, "even cages open." Tyrion Lannister shot him a hard look. "Or prisoners die," he countered. Eddard Stark's heart hammered. He imagined flames licking through the streets, imagined a riot surging through the gates. He imagined the cage door flung open, and then imagined a guard's spear thrusting through his ribs before he could take 2 steps. "Keep her safe," he rasped, and did not need to say which her. "If you have any decency left between you." Tyrion Lannister's face went still. "I have my vices," he said, "but I try to keep them from being children's corpses." Varys inclined his head, as if amused at the idea of decency. "We shall see," he murmured. The night noise swelled again. The city's anger pressed closer, like a storm moving in. Eddard Stark stood in his iron box and listened, wondering which would come first, freedom or slaughter, or another morning where Joffrey Baratheon called cruelty mercy. They brought the maester at midday, when the sun was high and the courtyard full. Joffrey Baratheon understood the value of an audience. A table was set just outside the cage, its wood polished as if to mock the roughness of Eddard Stark's hands. On it lay parchment, ink, and a quill. The maester held a small knife for trimming the feather. 2 gold cloaks stood near with spears planted. Ser Sandor Clegane lingered as he often did, a silent threat in armor. Joffrey Baratheon sat in a chair as if holding court, legs swinging slightly, the crown glinting. Sansa Stark stood behind Queen Cersei Lannister, her face composed with the fragile strain of someone pretending she had not been broken. "My lord," the maester said, voice careful. "The king requests." Joffrey Baratheon cut him off with a wave. "He knows what I want," the boy king said. "Eddard Stark will write to his son, Robb Stark. He will tell him to lay down his arms and come to King's Landing to beg for forgiveness. He will tell the North to kneel." Eddard Stark stared at the quill. He thought of Winterfell's godswood, the red leaves falling like drops of blood on snow. He thought of Robb Stark's steady hands on a sword hilt. He thought of Catelyn Stark's eyes, fierce with love. He thought of Sansa Stark's trembling voice the night before, begging. Eddard Stark lifted his gaze to Joffrey Baratheon. "No," he said. The word was quiet. It landed like a stone thrown into still water. Joffrey Baratheon's smile faltered. Then it returned sharper. "You don't understand," he said. "You're going to do it, or I will have Sansa Stark whipped again. I'll make her watch. I'll make her thank me for it." Sansa Stark flinched as if struck. Queen Cersei Lannister's hand settled on her shoulder, not comfort but possession. Eddard Stark's breath went shallow. Rage burned behind his eyes. He forced himself to speak slowly. "If you harm my daughter," he said, "you will have made enemies you cannot imagine." Joffrey Baratheon laughed, high and bright. "I have enemies already," he said. "I have a crown. Enemies are what make a king." Eddard Stark's fingers curled around the bars, knuckles white. "A king protects his people," he said, and the words felt like a prayer spoken in a brothel. Joffrey Baratheon leaned forward. "A king takes," he snapped. "Right." The maester dipped the quill, hands shaking. He slid the parchment forward through the bars, along with the ink. The iron gap was small, designed for feeding an animal. Joffrey Baratheon had insisted on it. Eddard Stark took the quill. It felt strange in his roughened fingers. Once he had signed decrees with such a tool. Now it was a weapon aimed at his own house. He lowered the quill to the parchment. Sansa Stark's eyes were on him, huge and wet. Queen Cersei Lannister watched with cool anticipation. Joffrey Baratheon's grin was eager, like a child waiting for a trick.
Eddard Stark's hand trembled.
He breathed in, tasting dust and ink. Then he wrote, not what they wanted, but what he could. Robb, he began, and the sight of his son's name made his vision blur. He forced the letters steady. He wrote of love, of caution, of the need to protect the North. He wrote nothing of surrender. He wrote nothing that would bind Robb Stark to kneel. He wrote between the lines, as best as a man could with spears watching and a boy king hungry for obedience. Joffrey Baratheon snatched the parchment when it was done, reading with a frown that deepened as he realized the words were not submission. His face reddened. "This is," he snarled. "This is nothing. It is a father's letter," Eddard Stark said, voice hoarse. "Not a king's leash." Joffrey Baratheon ripped the parchment in half, then in quarters. Then he flung the pieces like confetti. The crowd murmured, delighted.
Fine Joffrey Baratheon said.
"If you won't write, you'll speak." He turned, eyes bright. "Tomorrow," he announced to the courtyard, "Eddard Stark will stand before the people and beg my forgiveness again. He will say whatever I tell him. And if he refuses, Sansa Stark will pay. And then he will watch her pay again." Sansa Stark's face drained of color. Queen Cersei Lannister's grip tightened on her shoulder. Eddard Stark held Joffrey Baratheon's gaze through the bars. "You are not merciful," he said. "You are small." Joffrey Baratheon's smile vanished. For a heartbeat his eyes were those of a child caught in wrongdoing, hurt, furious, frightened. Then the king returned, cruel as a mask snapped into place. "Small?" Joffrey Baratheon repeated softly. "We'll see how small I am when I break you." The riot began like most things in King's Landing. Small, hungry, and ignored until it was too late. A cart of bread overturned near the mud gate. A woman screamed that her child had not eaten in 3 days. A man shouted that the queen hoarded food in her red castle while children starved in the streets. Someone threw a stone. Someone else threw another. The gold cloaks arrived, and the crowd did not melt away as crowds often did. It surged, emboldened by hunger and the strange courage that came when there was nothing left to lose. By the time the noise reached the Red Keep, it was not a rumor. It was a roar. Eddard Stark heard it first as distant thunder. Then guards began to run along the walls, calling to one another. Spears shifted. The courtyard tightened, men gathering like a fist. Smoke rose beyond the gates, thin at first, then thicker. A shout turned into a scream. A scream turned into many. The iron cage vibrated faintly when the first mass of people hit the outer line. Eddard Stark gripped the bars, eyes fixed on the gate. He could see nothing of the streets beyond, only the movement of men and the shadow of chaos pressing in. The gates opened briefly as a group of gold cloaks stumbled through, battered and bleeding. Behind them surged the city. Ragged men with clubs, women with kitchen knives, boys with stones in their hands. Torches flickered like angry stars. "Close the gates." Tyrion Lannister's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. He appeared in the courtyard, flanked by Bronn and a knot of guards. His face was tight, the humor gone. He shouted orders with the desperate clarity of a man who knew exactly how thin the line was between rule and slaughter. The gates began to swing shut, but the crowd pushed, bodies wedged into the narrowing gap. A man's arm was caught. He screamed. Someone stabbed a guard through the bars. Blood sprayed. The stench of fear thickened. Ser Sandor Clegane thundered into the fray like a warhorse unleashed. His sword rose and fell. He did not hesitate. He carved space, and men fell back screaming, not because of law or love, but because the hound was a beast and beasts were simple to fear. Eddard Stark watched, helpless, as the courtyard became a battleground. A torch arced through the air and struck near the cage, flames licking the stone. Heat washed over him. Smoke stung his eyes. For a heartbeat, the crowd's movement shifted toward him. Someone pointed. "The wolf!" A man shouted, voice ragged with drink and rage. "The wolf in the cage! The king's pet!" A cluster surged closer, hands reaching for the bars, fingers grasping as if they might pull iron apart. Eddard Stark's heart hammered. He could see their faces now, grim, desperate, furious. Not rescuers, not allies. Men who had decided he was a symbol and symbols could be torn down. A stone struck the cage and rang like a bell. Another hit Eddard Stark's shoulder, pain flaring. "Back!" a guard shouted, jabbing with a spear. A woman spat through the bars, saliva streaking Eddard Stark's cheek. "You lords did this!" she screamed. "All of you! You and your wars!" Eddard Stark tasted salt and ash. He wanted to shout that he had tried to stop it, that he had begged for peace, that he had broken himself to save his children. But the city did not care for explanations. The city cared only for bread and blood. Tyrion Lannister shoved forward, voice raw. "Get them out!" he roared. "Push them back! Don't let them!" A torch struck the cage again, and flames licked up the iron. The heat grew fierce. Eddard Stark recoiled, pressing to the far bars, the iron burning his palm where he touched it. Smoke curled in, choking. For one wild instant, Eddard Stark saw the possibility. The riot could tear the gates apart, could overwhelm guards, could smash locks. He could be free in the chaos. Then he saw the other possibility. The cage could become an oven, and he could die screaming while the city howled outside. Ser Sandor Clegane slammed into the cluster near the cage and drove them back with brutal efficiency. His blade flashed. A man fell with his throat opened. The crowd recoiled, screaming, and the moment of danger passed like a wave breaking and pulling away. The gates finally slammed shut with a thunderous crash. Men were crushed in the gap. Their screams rose and then cut off. In the sudden, awful quiet that followed, the courtyard was strewn with blood and broken torches. Smoke drifted upward toward a sky that did not change. Tyrion Lannister stood amid the aftermath, chest heaving, eyes hard. He looked up at the cage, at Eddard Stark's soot-streaked face. For a moment their eyes met, and Eddard Stark saw something there. Anger, yes, and calculation, but also the thin thread of dread that ran beneath them both. The realm was cracking, and Eddard Stark, alive in iron, was one of the wedges driving it wider. The raven flew north with black wings that beat against cold air. It carried ink and lies and fear, all folded tight beneath wax. It carried the news that a man lived when he should have died, and that his living had become a new kind of death. In Winterfell, the snow had begun early, as if the north sensed trouble and dressed itself in white armor. The courtyard lay quiet under a thin layer of frost. The dire wolves and the gods would move like shadows between trees, restless, sniffing the air as if smelling smoke from 1,000 miles away. Robb Stark stood in the great hall when Maester Luwin brought the message. The hall's heat pressed against the cold outside, firelight dancing on stone. The banners of House Stark hung still, the direwolf's head snarling in stitched thread, ancient and watchful. Maester Luwin held the parchment as if it weighed more than paper. "From King's Landing," he said. Catelyn Stark was at Robb Stark's shoulder before he could reach, her hands already half raised, as if she might snatch the letter and tear it apart to keep the words from existing. Robb Stark took it. His fingers were steady, but his jaw tightened as he broke the wax. His eyes moved across the lines. The color drained from his face. "He lives," Robb Stark said. Catelyn Stark's breath caught. "Ned," she whispered, and the name was prayer and pain. Robb Stark read again, as if the words might change. Then he looked up, eyes burning. "Joffrey Baratheon kept him," he said, voice tight. "He kept him in a cage." Catelyn Stark's hand pressed to her mouth. For a moment she swayed, as though the news had struck her like a physical blow. Then she straightened, and the softness fell away. The mother remained fierce and sharp. "A cage?" she repeated, and the word was a curse. Maester Luwin's face was grave. "There is more," he said quietly. "The letter says the king demands obedience. It says..." Robb Stark's hand crumpled the parchment slightly. "I don't care what it says," he snapped, then forced his voice down, fighting for control. "What did he write?" he asked, and the question was raw. "Did he tell us to kneel?" Catelyn Stark's eyes fixed on the parchment as if she could see through it to her husband's hand. "Ned would not," she said, but her voice trembled. "He would not surrender the North. Not like that." Robb Stark's eyes flicked over the lines again. In the careful phrasing, in the absence of any command to lay down swords, he found the shape of his father's will: endurance, warning, love buried under constraint. "He tried," Robb Stark said, and his voice broke on the word. He cleared his throat, swallowing the weakness. "He tried to tell us without telling them." Catelyn Stark stepped closer, her hand resting on Robb Stark's arm. "Then we must be clever," she said, and there was iron in her tone. "If Ned is alive, he can be exchanged. He can be saved." Robb Stark's gaze lifted to the direwolf banners. "And if we move wrong," he said, "they'll kill him." The truth hung between them like a blade. Outside, wind howled against the walls. Winterfell's doors shuddered. Somewhere in the Godswood, a wolf gave a low, uneasy sound. Robb Stark drew in a deep breath. When he spoke again, the boy was gone. The Lord remained. "We call the banners," Robb Stark said, "not for revenge alone, for rescue, for leverage, for war if we must." Catelyn Stark's eyes shone with tears she refused to shed. "We will bring him home," she whispered, as if speaking it aloud could make it real. Robb Stark folded the parchment with care, the way a man might fold a wounded thing to protect it. "Joffrey Baratheon thinks he's holding father like a trophy," he said, voice cold now. "He thinks he's leashed the North." Robb Stark looked toward the doors, toward the snow, toward the long road south. "He's just given us something to fight for that can't be buried," Robb Stark said. "And I swear by the old gods and the new, if Eddard Stark dies in that cage, King's Landing will learn what a wolf does when you torment its heart." The North answered as it always had, not with speeches but with boots on frozen earth. They came with frost clinging to their beards and the smell of pine sap in their cloaks. Horses steamed in the cold. Men stamped their feet, muttering, and the sound of their voices was like the low growl of a storm gathering beyond the walls. Robb Stark stood in the courtyard where he had once played at swords with wooden blades, where his father had watched him with that quiet pride that never needed words. Now the courtyard was crowded with real steel, and every face looked to him as if looking might make him older, might make him suddenly fit the mantle they were already placing across his shoulders. Great Jon Umber shoved through the press like a bull, his laughter booming even as his eyes burned. "I heard," he bellowed, "that the lion's whelp kept Eddard Stark alive like a chained dog. If that's true, then we take the city stone by stone and we hang the boy king from his own throne." Roose Bolton stood apart, pale-eyed, silent, hands folded in his sleeves. He watched Great Jon Umber as one might watch a fire, not with fear, but with interest in how it might be used. Catelyn Stark remained on the steps, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles looked carved from bone. She had not slept. Robb Stark could see it in the shadows beneath her eyes, in the way she held herself too still, as if movement might spill the grief she kept dammed inside. "The boy king wants father alive," Robb Stark said, forcing his voice to carry. "He wants us to break ourselves on him. He wants us to trade our pride for father's breath." Men muttered. A few spat. One of the Manderleys made the sign of the seven, as though warding off evil. "We'll give him neither," Great Jon Umber snarled. Robb Stark lifted his chin. Gray wind moved at his side, a living shadow with teeth. The direwolf's ears pricked, picking up every shift in the crowd. The animal felt the same tension Robb Stark felt, that tightening before a lunge. "We march," Robb Stark said, "but not blind." not roaring like beasts straight into a spear wall. We march to win leverage. We march to take something the lions cannot afford to lose. A ripple went through the men. Leverage. The word sounded like southern talk, like court and coin. But it was truth. Roose Bolton's thin mouth curved slightly. Hostages, he said softly. Robb Stark met his gaze. Hostages, he agreed, and hated that the world had become a place where he had to say it aloud. Catelyn Stark's voice carried down the steps, clear despite the strain. Your father lives, she said. That means we can save him. But if we rush, we kill him with our own hands. The courtyard stilled. Even Great John Umber's fury paused at the weight of her words. Robb Stark felt every eye on him. He thought of Eddard Stark in an iron cage, standing straight for strangers who threw stones. He thought of Sansa Stark's tears, of Arya Stark's missing face. He drew a breath that burned cold in his lungs. We march south, Robb Stark said, and every step we take is for father. We will not give the boy king what he wants. We will take from him what he cannot endure to lose. Men began to shout approval, fists raised, swords lifted. The sound rolled over Winterfell's walls like thunder. Grey wind threw back his head and howled, and the north answered him. When the shouting faded and the courtyard emptied, the war did not. It followed Robb Stark into the solar like a cold wind that slipped through every crack. Maps lay spread across the table, weighted with daggers and cups, rivers drawn in ink like veins. Catelyn Stark stood beside him, her fingers tracing the long road south. Maester Luwin hovered, worried lines carved deep into his face. Theon Greyjoy lounged near the hearth with practiced ease, as if pretending this was only another tale of heroes. But even Theon's smile looked strained, stretched too thin over fear. We cannot win a war by marching, Maester Luwin cautioned. The Lannisters have gold, men, and the king's name. They have a boy, Theon Greyjoy said, voice light. And boys bleed the same. Catelyn Stark shot him a look sharp enough to cut. This boy holds my husband, she said, and my daughter. Theon Greyjoy's smile faltered. He lifted his hands in surrender. He said, then we take something of theirs to trade. Robb Stark stared at the map until the ink blurred. If we take Jaime Lannister, he said slowly, they must bargain. Maester Luwin hesitated. Jaime Lannister rides with his father's forces, he said, and Tywin Lannister is not a man who gives up what he wants because of love. No, Catelyn Stark murmured, and her voice turned bitter. Tywin Lannister will sacrifice anything to win.
Robb Stark's jaw tightened.
Then we need more than love, he said. We need to make it cost. He looked to his mother. If father is alive, he said, the lords will want me crowned. Catelyn Stark's eyes closed briefly, pain flickering across her face. And if they crown you, she said, Joffrey Baratheon will kill your father to prove he can.
Robb Stark's throat tightened.
Then we cannot crown me, he said, and the words tasted like defeat. Catelyn Stark opened her eyes, and there was fierce clarity in them. Not yet, she corrected. Not while Ned breathes behind bars. We need to keep the North united without giving the Boy King an excuse to cut your father's throat. Theon Greyjoy scoffed softly. Excuse, he said. A king doesn't need one. Joffrey Baratheon does, Robb Stark said, surprising himself with how certain he sounded. He needs to believe he's right. He needs to believe the realm sees him as strong. If we give him a clear act of rebellion, a crown, a declaration, he will take father's head and show it to the city and call it justice. Maester Luwin nodded reluctantly. Then your war becomes a war of shadows, he said. A war for leverage rather than banners. Robb Stark stared at the river lines. We cross at the Twins, he said. We take the Riverlands to our side. We win battles. We capture prisoners. We force them to bargain. Catelyn Stark's hand rested on his arm, warm against his cold skin. And we pray, she said softly, that Ned endures long enough for us to reach him. Robb Stark looked up at her. For a heartbeat he was again a boy, needing her certainty like he needed breath. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted, voice low. Catelyn Stark's expression softened, grief shining through the steel. "You can," she said, "because you must. Because your father is alive, and that means hope is still allowed in this world, even if it hurts." Grey Wind lifted his head, amber eyes fixed on Robb Stark. The direwolf's gaze held no doubt, only readiness. Robb Stark placed his hand on the wolf's fur and felt the steady warmth there, the simple truth of a living thing. "Then we go," he said. The twins rose from the river like teeth, two great towers joined by a bridge that owned the only clean crossing for leagues. Gray water rushed beneath, cold and unfeeling, as if it had seen too many wars to care about another. Walder Frey sat in the warmth of his hall as if he were the river itself, old, stubborn, and certain that everything must pass through him. His eyes were small and bright, and they moved over Robb Stark with the hunger of a man measuring profit. "So," Walder Frey said, voice thin and amused, "the young wolf comes south, and he does not bring his father's head. That's a change from what the songs promised." Robb Stark's jaw tightened, but Catelyn Stark stepped forward before he could speak. "My husband lives," she said, and every word was iron wrapped in velvet. "And that is why we have come." Walder Frey's mouth curled. He said, "the boy king kept him like a trophy. I've heard. King's Landing is full of clever ideas these days." Roose Bolton stood behind Robb Stark, silent. Great John Umber looked like he might tear Walder Frey's throat out and call it courtesy. Robb Stark forced himself to breathe. "We need your bridge," Robb Stark said, "and we will pay." Walder Frey chuckled. "Pay?" he echoed. "Gold? I have gold. Promises? I have promises. I want something better. I want to know that when the lions are done, House Frey is not the one left bleeding in the mud." Catelyn Stark's eyes narrowed. "Then help us make sure the lions are not done," she said. Walder Frey leaned forward. "Marriage," he said simply. "That's what binds men more than words. You want my bridge, you bind your house to mine." The hall felt suddenly smaller. Robb Stark felt the weight of 100 eyes. Walder Frey's gaze fixed on Robb Stark like a hook. "You will wed one of my daughters," he said, "and I will give you what you want." Robb Stark's stomach turned. He thought of his father in a cage, of time slipping like sand through fingers. He thought of Sansa Stark's tears, of Arya Stark's missing face. He understood then what war was. Not glorious charges, not banners snapping, but this old men demanding pieces of you in exchange for what should have been freely given. Catelyn Stark's voice was tight. "My son is not a coin to be spent," she said. Walder Frey smiled wider. "Everything is a coin," he replied. "Even sons, even fathers in cages." Great John Umber growled, stepping forward, but Robb Stark lifted a hand and stopped him. His fingers clenched into a fist at his side. "If I agree," Robb Stark said carefully, "you give us passage, you give us men." Walder Frey's eyes gleamed. He said, "and you swear on your father's honor."
Robb Stark tastet Biele.
His father's honor had already been dragged through King's Landing like a carcass, and still men wanted to swear on it. Robb Stark met Walder Frey's gaze and held it. "I swear," he said, and the words felt like a cut. Walder Frey clapped his hands, delighted. "Good," he said. "Then let us see if the young wolf can keep his promises better than the old wolves did." Catelyn Stark's face remained composed, but Robb Stark felt her trembling beside him like a storm held behind a wall. As they left the hall, Catelyn Stark leaned close to Robb Stark, her voice barely a breath. "You did what you had to," she murmured. Robb Stark stared at the bridge ahead, at the river beneath, and wondered how many more pieces of himself he would have to give away before he could buy his father's freedom. In King's Landing, the throne room glittered with false peace. Sunlight poured through high windows and struck the iron throne so it shone like a pile of sharpened bones. Courtiers murmured and bowed, moving like fish around a shark. Tyrion Lannister stood at the foot of the dais, hands clasped behind his back. his face set with controlled irritation. He had arrived with bruises from the riot still fresh in the city's memory, and with anger still fresh in his own. Joffrey Baratheon lounged on the throne, looking bored. The crown sat on his head as if it were a toy he refused to share. Queen Cersei Lannister stood beside him, perfect in her gold, one hand resting on the throne's arm like she owned it. Peter Baelish leaned on a pillar near the side, smiling at nothing. Varys stood with hands folded, eyes attentive. Tyrion Lannister did not bow deeply. "Your Grace," he said, voice crisp. "The city nearly tore itself apart yesterday." Joffrey Baratheon yawned. "The city is full of peasants," he said. "Peasants riot. That's what they do." Tyrion Lannister's smile was thin. "And when peasants riot," he said, "they sometimes decide to drag kings out of castles." Cersei Lannister's eyes flashed. "Careful," she warned. Tyrion Lannister ignored her. "The cage," he said, nodding toward the open doors where the iron bars were visible in the courtyard beyond. "It has become a symbol." Joffrey Baratheon's mouth twisted. "A symbol of mercy," he snapped. "A symbol of cruelty," Tyrion Lannister corrected. "And cruelty breeds enemies faster than it breeds obedience." Joffrey Baratheon leaned forward, petulance sharpening into rage. "He's a traitor," he hissed. "He deserves it." Tyrion Lannister stepped closer, voice lower but more dangerous. "He deserves to be useful," he said. "You want the North to kneel? Then you need their lord alive, fed, and capable of being traded. Not roasted by torches in a riot because you wanted the city to clap." Joffrey Baratheon's cheeks colored. "Don't tell me what to do." Tyrion Lannister's eyes hardened. "I am the hand," he said, and the words rang through the room like a thrown gauntlet. "And I will tell you what needs doing if you want to keep your crown on your head." Silence snapped tight. Courtiers held their breath. Even Peter Baelish's smile paused, as if savoring the tension. Cersei Lannister's voice was soft and lethal. "Tyrion," she said, "remember your place." Tyrion Lannister looked at her and let bitterness flicker across his face. "I am remembering it," he said. "Someone must." Joffrey Baratheon surged to his feet, fists clenched. "I am the king," he shouted. "I can have you whipped. I can have you." Tyrion Lannister's laugh cut him off short and sharp. "You can have anything," he said, "but you cannot have sense without help." Joffrey Baratheon's eyes darted to his mother, seeking support, seeking permission. Cersei Lannister's gaze held his, steadying him like a hand on a leash. Varys's voice drifted in, mild as a breeze. "Perhaps," he murmured. "The question is not whether Lord Eddard Stark should be displayed, but how best to display him." Peter Baelish's smile returned. "A softer cage," he suggested, amused. "One with cushions." Tyrion Lannister shot him a look. "I'm serious," he said. "If Robb Stark marches, and he will, we need options. We need to be able to bargain." Joffrey Baratheon's face twisted. "I don't bargain," he spat. Tyrion Lannister leaned in, voice cold enough to frost glass. "Then you will lose," he said, "and you won't even understand why." Through the open doors, the iron cage sat in the courtyard, dark against sunlit stone. Eddard Stark stood inside it, still as a statue, watching the throne room as if he could see through walls and lies. Tyrion Lannister's gaze flicked to the cage, and for the briefest moment something like sympathy crossed his face, then vanished beneath duty. "Bring him inside," Tyrion Lannister commanded suddenly. "Not to free him, to keep him alive." Joffrey Baratheon's mouth opened to protest, but Cersei Lannister placed a hand on his arm and smiled faintly. "Let your uncle manage," she murmured, and her tone made it clear she meant manage Tyrion as much as anything else. Tyrion Lannister turned away from the dais with the air of a man carrying a barrel of wildfire through a crowded room, praying it did not ignite. They moved Eddard Stark at twilight, when the courtyard was quieter and fewer eyes could see the king's mercy being adjusted. Guards unlocked the cage with a clank that made Eddard Stark's heart stutter despite himself. Iron swung open, Cold air shifted. For an instant he stood at the threshold and felt something dangerous. The absence of bars in front of him. Freedom's shape, even if it was illusion. Then hands seized him, chains still on his wrists, and dragged him forward. Tyrion Lannister watched from the steps of a corridor, his posture tense. Ser Sandor Clegane leaned near a doorway like a carved gargoyle. Varys stood at the edge of torchlight, smiling faintly as if he enjoyed the sight of cages being moved from place to place. "Easy," Tyrion Lannister said sharply when a guard shoved too hard. "If he falls down the stairs and breaks his neck, I'll feed you to your own dogs." The guard muttered but eased, and Eddard Stark felt a flash of grim gratitude that tasted like ash. They brought him into a small stone chamber that smelled of damp and old smoke. It was no fine cell, but it was warmer than the courtyard and had a pallet on the floor. A bowl of water sat on a table. Food, real food, bread that wasn't stale, a piece of cheese, waited like a miracle offered by cynical hands. Tyrion Lannister entered after the guards, Bronn at his shoulder. The dwarf's gaze swept over Eddard Stark as if assessing a wounded horse. "You look like you've been used as a festival decoration," Tyrion Lannister said. Eddard Stark's voice was hoarse. "I have." Tyrion Lannister gestured, and the guards backed out, though Ser Sandor Clegane remained by the door, arms folded. Varys lingered just outside, close enough to hear, far enough to pretend he was not listening. Tyrion Lannister stepped closer. "I didn't bring you in because I'm kind," he said. "I brought you in because my nephew is an idiot and my sister is reckless." Eddard Stark stared at him. "Then why keep me alive at all?" he rasped. "Why not end it and be done?" Tyrion Lannister's eyes narrowed. "Because dead men are simple," he said, "and simple is not always useful. You are a lever, Lord Eddard Stark, a heavy one, and the realm is a door that's beginning to crack at the hinges." Eddard Stark's hands flexed in their chains. "My daughters," he said. Tyrion Lannister's expression tightened. "Sansa Stark is alive," he said, "because she is valuable, because she is watched. Arya Stark," he hesitated, then shook his head. "Still missing." Eddard Stark closed his eyes briefly, pain stabbing through him. When he opened them again, his gaze held steady. "If you truly mean to keep the realm from burning," he said, "then you will keep my daughters safe." Tyrion Lannister's laugh was humorless. "I'm trying," he said. "But you should understand something. The crown doesn't keep people safe. It keeps them owned."
Eddard Stark's mouth tightened.
"Then why serve it?" Tyrion Lannister looked past him, as if the answer lived somewhere on the wall. "Because if I don't," he said softly, "someone worse will." Eddard Stark stared at the bread on the table, at the water. "And what do you want from me?" Tyrion Lannister stepped closer, voice low. "I want you alive," he said. "I want you to endure. Not for your honor, for your house, for your daughters, for the possibility that someday your son will have something worth trading, and my family will be forced to listen." Eddard Stark's throat worked. "You think Tywin Lannister will trade?" he said. Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted. "My father trades when it profits him," he said. "And if Robb Stark captures someone important enough, it will profit him to bring you out of this mess alive." Eddard Stark's hands clenched. "And if I die before then?" Tyrion Lannister's eyes flicked to Ser Sandor Clegane and back. "Then the north will bleed the riverlands dry," he said, "and the realm will drown in it, and my nephew will sit on a throne surrounded by ghosts." Eddard Stark's gaze held his. "You speak as if you fear the north," he said. Tyrion Lannister's smile was thin. "I fear anyone with cause," he replied. "And you, Lord Eddard Stark, are becoming a cause." Outside the chamber, the red keep's torches flickered, throwing bars of light across the stones like imagined prison grates. Eddard Stark sat on the pallet and ate slowly, forcing himself to accept the fuel his body needed. He did not thank Tyrion Lannister. Gratitude here was another chain, but as he drank clean water, he felt something shift. Small, dangerous, alive. Endure, Tyrion Lannister had said. Eddard Stark had endured winter. He could endure this too. Sansa Stark learned quickly that survival in the Red Keep was an art made of small humiliations. She learned to lower her eyes at the right time, to smile when her stomach churned, to speak sweetly even when bitterness filled her mouth. She learned to wear silk like armor and tears like currency. Queen Cersei Lannister dressed her that evening in a gown the color of fresh blood. "You are a Stark," the queen said as she fastened a necklace at Sansa Stark's throat, her fingers cold. "But you are also mine now. You must look the part." Sansa Stark stared at her reflection in a polished metal mirror. The girl in the mirror looked like a stranger. Pretty, pale, and trapped. Her eyes looked too large, as if grief had widened them. A knock sounded. Before Sansa Stark could breathe, the door opened and Joffrey Baratheon strode in with the careless swagger of a boy who had never been denied. Ser Meryn Trant followed like a shadow, his face empty. "Look at you," Joffrey Baratheon said, pleased, "pretty as a little bird." Sansa Stark forced her lips into a smile. "Your Grace," she murmured. Joffrey Baratheon circled her, assessing. "My uncle thinks he's clever," he said, voice sharp with resentment. "He brought your father inside like he's some fragile treasure." Sansa Stark's heart lurched. Inside, alive, warmth and terror collided inside her. She kept her face composed by sheer will. "But don't worry," Joffrey Baratheon went on, stepping close enough that Sansa Stark could smell wine on his breath. "He's still mine." Queen Cersei Lannister watched from a chair, her expression calm, her eyes glittering with something like amusement. "Joffrey," she said softly. "You'll frighten her." Joffrey Baratheon grinned. "Good," he said. He reached out and caught a lock of Sansa Stark's hair, twisting it around his finger like a leash. "You should be grateful," he told her. "I could have killed him."
Sansa Stark swallowed.
"I am grateful," she said, each word tasting like poison. Joffrey Baratheon's eyes narrowed, searching for something. Fear, defiance, truth. He found enough fear to satisfy him. He released her hair with a sudden yank that made her scalp sting. "You'll come with me tomorrow," he said. "We're going to see your father. I want you to tell him how much you love your king."
Sansa Stark's stomach twisted.
"Yes, your grace," she whispered. Joffrey Baratheon's smile widened. "And if he refuses to thank me," he added, "I'll have Ser Meryn Trant show you what happens when people displease their king." Ser Meryn Trant shifted, eyes dead. Sansa Stark's hands trembled beneath her sleeves. She clenched her fingers until her nails bit her palms. Queen Cersei Lannister's voice was lazy. "Leave her some strength," she murmured. "A broken girl is less useful." Joffrey Baratheon laughed, delighted. "She's not broken," he said. "Not yet." When he left, the room felt colder. Sansa Stark stood very still, breathing shallowly. Queen Cersei Lannister watched her like a cat watching a mouse that had not yet realized it was doomed. "You must be clever," Cersei Lannister said softly. "Clever girls survive." Sansa Stark's voice was barely a breath. "My father survives," she said. Not a question, but a desperate insistence. Queen Cersei Lannister's smile was faint. "For now," she said. "So do you." Sansa Stark stared at the mirror again. The girl in the mirror stared back, eyes shining with tears that refused to fall, because tears belonged to Sansa Stark the child, and the child was dying in this castle, one humiliating day at a time. Arya Stark moved through King's Landing like a shadow that refused to be caught. She kept her hair cut short, her cheeks smeared with dirt, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself smaller than the city's notice. She had learned the alleys by smell and sound, where the fish market stank strongest, where the tanner's yard made your eyes water, where the gold cloaks rarely bothered to look. She hated the city, felt like a mouth always chewing. On the day after the riot, the streets still carried scorch marks and broken glass. People whispered in tight knots. A cart lay overturned like a dead beetle. A man's body had been dragged to the side of the road and covered with cloth too thin to hide the shape beneath. Arya Stark kept her eyes down and her hand near the knife she had stolen. Needle was gone, lost when she had run, lost when the city had swallowed her. The absence of it felt like a hole inside her chest. She slipped into a narrow lane near a forge where heat spilled out like breath from a dragon. A boy with strong arms swung a hammer, sparks flying. His face was set, focused, as if the hammer's rhythm kept the world from falling apart. Gendry, she remembered, the boy who didn't know who he was, the boy whose eyes had looked too much like Robert Baratheon's. Arya Stark paused, watching him, something like longing twisting in her stomach. Here was someone who still lived in a world where metal and fire made sense. A hand clamped around her arm. Arya Stark spun, knife flashing up instinctively. The blade stopped inches from a man's throat. Yoren of the Night's Watch stared at her with a flat, unimpressed look. "Easy," he grunted. "If you cut me, I'll feed you to the pigs." Arya Stark's breath came sharp. "Let go," she hissed. Yoren tightened his grip just enough to remind her he could break her arm if he wanted. "You're the one I've been looking for," he said. "The pretty little bird that flew away." Arya Stark's eyes widened. "I'm not." "Don't," Yoren growled. "I don't care who you are. I care what you cost me if I don't deliver." Arya Stark's heart hammered. "Deliver to who?" Yoren's gaze flicked around, wary. "Quiet," he muttered, and pulled her deeper into the alley, away from the street's eyes. "The city's crawling with gold cloaks looking for a girl. I'm not keen to end up missing a head."
Arya Stark's throat tightened.
"My father," she whispered, the word catching. Yoren's expression shifted, just a fraction. "He's alive," he said. The words hit Arya Stark like a slap. Alive. Her mind tried to reject it. She had seen him kneeling. She had heard the crowds roar. She had run because she could not watch his head fall. "Alive?" she repeated, voice trembling. Yoren nodded once. "The boy king kept him," he said. "Locked in a cage like some prize. Folk talk about it in every tavern. Some spit, some pray." Arya Stark's eyes burned. Rage surged through her, hot enough to match the forge's heat. "I'll kill him," she whispered. "I'll kill Joffrey Baratheon." Yoren snorted. He said, "and I'll sprout wings. Listen to me, girl. If you want to live, you come with me. I'm taking recruits north. The Wall doesn't ask questions. The Wall doesn't care what you were." Arya Stark yanked her arm, but Yoren's grip held. "My sister," she said, voice cracking. "Sansa Stark is still in the castle," Yoren said, blunt. "Still breathing by rumor, but you going back won't save her. It'll just get you caught." Arya Stark stared toward the forge door where Gendry stood watching, curiosity and wariness in his eyes. The boy's hammer hung at his side, heavy, ready. "You," Arya Stark blurted, pointing at him, mind racing. "You're coming too." Gendry frowned. "What?" Yoren jerked his head. "He is," he said. "He owes the watch for not being sold to some lord's pleasure house. Now move." Arya Stark's hands shook. Alive, her father was alive, and she was walking away from him. The thought felt like betrayal, but she had learned in the last days that courage without sense was just another kind of death. She swallowed hard and nodded once. Yoren shoved her forward. "Keep your head down," he growled. "And if anyone asks, you're a boy named Aery. Aery, a lie, a shield." Arya Stark clung to it as she followed Yoren through the city's back teeth, the forge's sparks fading behind her like tiny stars dying in daylight. War did not wait for vows to settle. It moved faster than grief. The Riverlands welcomed Robb Stark with smoke and stories. Burned villages, raped women, dead children left in ditches. Each tale fed the fury in his men, but Robb Stark forced his mind toward purpose. Leverage, not slaughter. Rescue, not ruin. When they reached the edges of the Whispering Wood, night had fallen thick and wet. Mist threaded through the trees like ghosts trying to find their bodies again. Torches were kept low, shielded, their light swallowed quickly by the dark. Robb Stark rode at the front, his breath visible in the chill, his hands steady on the reins. Gray wind moved ahead, silent. a living shadow with teeth and intelligence. The direwolf's ears flicked, catching the distant clank of armor, the murmur of men who thought themselves safe. Jaime Lannister's camp lay within the wood like a bright wound. Fires glowing, men laughing too loudly, unaware of the knife moving toward them. Robb Stark lifted his hand, and his men froze. The world held its breath. Then, with a sharp motion, he dropped his hand. The north surged. Steel whispered out of scabbards. Men moved through the trees like a tide of dark fur and cold purpose. Cries erupted, surprise first, then pain, then chaos. Robb Stark spurred forward, sword raised. The clash of metal rang through the wood, sharp as broken ice. Jaime Lannister burst from his tent like a lion woken by fire. He wore armor even in sleep, as if he never allowed himself to be truly unguarded. His sword flashed, cutting down a man before the man understood he was dead. "Who dares?" Jaime Lannister roared, spinning, golden hair wild in torchlight. Robb Stark met him in the churn of bodies, their blades clanging. Jaime Lannister was fast, too fast, a dancer with steel. Robb Stark felt the shock of each impact up his arms, felt his muscles strain to keep pace. He had trained, he had fought, but Jaime Lannister was something else. A man born with violence in his blood. Grey wind launched from the shadows, teeth bared. Jaime Lannister twisted aside just in time, the direwolf's jaws snapping at air where his throat had been. For an instant, Jaime Lannister's eyes met Robb Stark's, green and burning with disbelief. "A boy," Jaime Lannister spat, voice contemptuous even as he bled. "They sent a boy." Robb Stark's blade flicked, drawing a line across Jaime Lannister's arm. "They sent a son," Robb Stark said, voice cold. "For a father." Jaime Lannister laughed, harsh. "Then you're a fool," he snarled and lunged again. The fight around them thickened. Men screamed, horses reared, torches fell, casting weird, shifting light that made every face look monstrous. Grey wind circled, seeking an opening. A northern spear thrust toward Jaime Lannister's back. He spun and cut the spearman down, but the movement cost him. Robb Stark drove forward, blade slamming into Jaime Lannister's guard. The impact jolted both of them. Jaime Lannister's eyes narrowed, recognizing something in Robb Stark's stance. Stubbornness, determination, the refusal to yield. "You want your father back," Jaime Lannister said, voice low amid the chaos. "Yes," Robb Stark growled. Jaime Lannister's smile was sharp. "Then you should pray my father loves me," he said. Grey wind lunged again, faster this time. Teeth sank into Jaime Lannister's sword arm. Jaime Lannister roared, pain and fury, and his blade clattered to the ground. Northern men surged in, spears raised, blades at his throat. For a heartbeat, Jaime Lannister stood panting, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes blazing. Then he lifted his chin with defiant arrogance even in defeat. Robb Stark stepped close, sword at Jaime Lannister's chest. "Tell Tywin Lannister," he said, voice like winter, "that Eddard Stark comes home or Jaime Lannister does not." Jaime Lannister's laughter came out as a rasp. "Good," he said. "Now the real war begins." They bound Jaime Lannister in chains thick enough to hold a bull and placed him under guard, and still he looked like a man who expected the world to bend. Even seated, even bloodied, he carried himself like a blade that had not yet dulled. Robb Stark's war tent smelled of damp cloth and sweat, of metal and old fear. Lantern light painted harsh shadows. Outside, men celebrated the victory with rough laughter, but inside the tent the air was tight with consequences. Catelyn Stark stepped close to Jaime Lannister, studying him as if he were a puzzle that might unlock her husband's cage. Her face held grief like stone holds cold. Jaime Lannister looked up at her with a mocking glint. "Lady Stark," he said smoothly, "come to see the lion in chains?" Catelyn Stark's voice was quiet. "I came to see what my husband's life is worth to your family." Jaime Lannister's smile widened. "Ah," he said, "that depends on who you ask." Great John Umber snorted. His father will trade, he growled. Tywin Lannister loves his heir. Roose Bolton's pale eyes flicked to Jaime Lannister. Tywin Lannister loves victory, he said softly. He loves legacy. He may decide the heir can be replaced.
Robb Stark's jaw tightened.
He will not, he said, and the certainty sounded like a vow he needed to believe. Catelyn Stark turned to Robb Stark. We must act quickly, she said, before the boy king grows bored. Before he decides my husband's throat is entertainment. Robb Stark's hands clenched on the table edge. We send terms, he said. An exchange. Jaime Lannister for Eddard Stark. Sansa Stark too. Jaime Lannister laughed quietly. Sansa Stark? He echoed. You want a girl and a lord for a night? How ambitious. Robb Stark's eyes snapped to him, cold and hard. You are not a knight, he said. You are a hostage. Jaime Lannister's grin sharpened. And your father is a trophy, he replied. Do you think a boy like Joffrey Baratheon will give up his favorite toy because you asked politely? Catelyn Stark's face tightened. Then we do not ask politely, she said. Robb Stark met her gaze. No, he agreed. We make it impossible to refuse. Maester Luwin was not there, left behind in Winterfell, but the raven cage in the corner seemed to stare at them like his ghost. A bird shifted inside, restless. Robb Stark reached for parchment. His hand hovered over the ink, and for a moment he saw his father's hand, writing in a cage with spears watching. The thought made his throat burn. He began to write. He wrote to Tyrion Lannister first because he understood that Tywin Lannister was far away and Joffrey Baratheon was an idiot, but Tyrion Lannister was present and sharp. He wrote to Cersei Lannister too, though he knew she would twist any word. He wrote to the court, to the realm, to anyone who might listen. He wrote the terms. Jaime Lannister alive and unharmed in exchange for Eddard Stark alive and unharmed, and Sansa Stark returned and safe passage. He wrote it as a demand, not a plea. When he finished, he sealed it with wax bearing the direwolf. He held it for a moment, staring at the symbol, so simple, so fierce. This is our leverage, Robb Stark said, and his voice was low. This is our chance. Catelyn Stark placed her hand over his, squeezing. He is alive, she whispered. Hold to that. Jaime Lannister watched them, chains clinking softly as he shifted. Send your letters, he said almost kindly. Hope is a lovely thing. It makes men do the most interesting mistakes. Robb Stark's gaze turned to him like a blade. If they refuse, Robb Stark said, you will learn what a wolf does when its heart is trapped. Jaime Lannister's smile did not fade. And you, he said, will learn what a lion does when it decides it no longer needs to play. Dawn came thin and cold, and with it came the king's hunger for spectacle. Eddard Stark was dragged into the courtyard again, not returned to the cage but placed on a raised platform as if for judgment. His chains clinked softly with every step, a cruel kind of music. The city had gathered early, drawn by rumor like flies to blood. Faces pressed close, breath steamed in the cold. The Red Keep stone seemed to watch without expression. Joffrey Baratheon stood before them dressed in velvet and arrogance, his smile bright as a new coin. Queen Cersei Lannister was beside him, serene. Sansa Stark stood just behind, pale as frost, eyes fixed on her father with desperate intensity. Tyrion Lannister was there too, his posture rigid, jaw clenched so tightly Eddard Stark could see the muscle jumping. Bronn leaned near the edge, hand resting casually on a sword hilt, eyes scanning the crowd for trouble. Varys hovered like a soft shadow, listening to everything. Joffrey Baratheon's voice rang out. Eddard Stark, he called. Your son marches against his rightful king. He has taken prisoners. He thinks he can bargain. A murmur rolled through the crowd. A raven perched on the battlements above, head cocked as if listening. Joffrey Baratheon lifted a parchment, waving it like a prize. He has sent terms, the king said, delight sharp in his tone. He offers my uncle Jaime Lannister for you. The crowd gasped, then buzzed with excitement. The name Jaime Lannister carried weight even among small folk. Stories had made him larger than life. Joffrey Baratheon's smile widened. "Isn't that sweet?" he said. "The son thinks he can trade for his father, like exchanging pigs at market."
Sansa Stark flinched.
Eddard Stark kept his face still, though his heart hammered. Joffrey Baratheon stepped closer to Eddard Stark, eyes glittering. "Tell them," he said softly, cruel enough that only those near could hear. "Tell them your son is a traitor. Tell them you beg me to forgive him. Tell them you thank me for keeping you alive."
Eddard Stark's throat tightened.
He looked past Joffrey Baratheon to Sansa Stark, to his daughter's wide eyes. He saw the plea there, the terror, the fragile hope. He also saw something else. Something like resolve, a desperate fierceness that had not been there before. Sansa Stark was changing, hardening, learning. Eddard Stark drew a breath. He could feel Tyrion Lannister's gaze on him, heavy with warning. He could feel Cersei Lannister watching, calculating. He could feel the crowd's hunger, waiting to be fed. "I have one son who marches," Eddard Stark said, voice hoarse but carrying. The crowd quieted. Even Joffrey Baratheon blinked, surprised by the steadiness. "He marches because I am alive," Eddard Stark went on. "He marches because you have made me a spectacle. He marches because you believe fear will turn wolves into dogs." Joffrey Baratheon's face reddened. "Stop," he hissed. Eddard Stark did not stop. The words had been trapped too long. "A king does not rule by cages," he said. "A king rules by justice. And there is no justice in what you have done." A roar rose from the crowd. Anger, shock, awe. Some shouted curses. Some shouted approval. The sound cracked the morning open. Joffrey Baratheon's hand shook with rage. "Enough!" he shrieked. He spun, pointing at the guards. Take him back." Tyrion Lannister stepped forward suddenly, voice sharp. "Your Grace," he snapped. "If you cut his tongue out in front of them, you'll have another riot by noon." Joffrey Baratheon whirled on him. "He insulted me, and he gave you what you want," Tyrion Lannister hissed back. "He made the North look defiant. Use it. Don't burn it." Cersei Lannister's eyes flashed, but she said nothing. She watched Joffrey Baratheon as one watches a child near a cliff. Joffrey Baratheon's chest heaved. For a heartbeat, Eddard Stark thought the boy would order his death anyway, pride outweighing sense. Then Joffrey Baratheon's face smoothed into something like cold satisfaction. "Very well," Joffrey Baratheon said loudly, turning back to the crowd. "You see what kind of man he is. Stubborn, unbroken, but he will break. And when Robb Stark begs, I will decide what mercy looks like." He leaned close to Eddard Stark again, voice a venomous whisper. "And if your son refuses," he murmured, "I'll make you watch your daughter bleed for it." Eddard Stark's heart lurched, but his face remained still. Above them, the raven took flight, wings beating hard against the cold air, carrying news south and north and nowhere at all, because the realm itself was becoming a cage, and every breath inside it was leverage. The letter arrived with river mud still clinging to its leather tube, as if the North had dipped it in the trident before sending it south. Tyrion Lannister broke the direwolf seal without ceremony and read the terms aloud in a voice that made each word sound sharper than ink had any right to be. Jaime Lannister alive and unharmed in exchange for Eddard Stark alive and unharmed. Sansa Stark returned. Safe passage. A place and time to be agreed. When Tyrion Lannister finished, the chamber did not breathe for a moment. Even the candles seemed to hold their flames still. Queen Cersei Lannister's fingers tightened on the arm of her chair. "They have him," she said, as if saying it might make it less true. Her eyes were bright, anger, fear, and something dangerously close to hope. Joffrey Baratheon scoffed, pacing in front of the table like a boy denied his favorite sweet. "They think they can bargain with me," he said. "They think they can." His voice climbed, brittle with insult. "I should have his head. I should send it to Winterfell in a box." Grand Maester Pycelle made a wet, anxious sound. Varys remained serene, hands folded. Peter Baelish's smile was thin as a knife. Tyrion Lannister set the parchment down carefully. "You announced the offer to the courtyard like it was a jest," he said to Joffrey Baratheon. "Now the whole city knows Robb Stark holds your uncle, and the whole realm knows Eddard Stark still breathes. So?" Joffrey Baratheon snapped. "Let them know. Let them fear me." "Fear is useful," Tyrion Lannister said, "but only if the people fear you more than they hate you. At the moment, you're doing an excellent job of teaching them to do both." Cersei Lannister's gaze cut to Tyrion Lannister. "Jaime," she said, the name bare, stripped of queenly control. "He's my son too, Tyrion." "He's your brother," Tyrion Lannister corrected softly, and there was something in the way he said it that made it sting. "And yes, he matters." Joffrey Baratheon's face twisted. "He matters more than the traitor?" he demanded. "More than my dignity?" Cersei Lannister's voice sharpened. "Your dignity will do you little good if the Starks march south with my brother's head on a spear," she hissed. Joffrey Baratheon stiffened, eyes flashing toward his mother. For a heartbeat, the mask slipped and the boy beneath looked frightened. Then pride slammed it back into place. "They won't," he said, louder than necessary. "They wouldn't dare." "They would," Cersei Lannister said, and now fear edged her anger. "And if they do, your grandfather will burn the Riverlands to ash and still not bring him back. Do you understand that? Your cruelty does not create obedience. It creates desperation." Peter Baelish's voice slid in like oil. "Desperation makes men predictable," he murmured. "And predictable men can be managed." Tyrion Lannister's eyes flicked toward him. "Is that what you call it?" he said. "Managing." Peter Baelish only smiled. Varys inclined his head. "Lord Eddard Stark alive is complicated," he said gently. "Not merely for the Starks. A living man can speak. And there are whispers already flying toward Dragonstone." Grand Maester Pycelle twitched. "Dragonstone," he echoed, as if the word itself carried plague. Tyrion Lannister's jaw tightened. "Stannis Baratheon," he said. Joffrey Baratheon spun, eyes bright. "Stannis Baratheon can choke on his sour honor," he spat. "He's nothing." Varys's smile remained mild. "Nothing," he repeated. "And yet men often rally to nothing when it is wrapped in righteousness." Tyrion Lannister looked down at the direwolf seal broken on the table, at the ink-stained demand that had crossed half a continent on wing and hoof. He could feel the realm's hinge creaking. "We answer," Tyrion Lannister said. Joffrey Baratheon stopped pacing. "We refuse," he snapped. "We answer," Tyrion Lannister repeated, sharper. "We do not refuse outright because that makes you look weak and foolish. Foolish for keeping Eddard Stark alive and then wasting the leverage." Cersei Lannister leaned forward. "We demand Jaime," she said. "We give them their wolf lord. We keep the girl." Tyrion Lannister's gaze moved to her. "If we keep Sansa Stark," he said, "Robb Stark keeps fighting because you'll still hold his sister. And if Robb Stark keeps fighting, your precious son will keep needing spectacles to prove he's king, and will keep bleeding." Joffrey Baratheon's face reddened. "Say it again," he hissed. "Say I'm not king." Tyrion Lannister met his eyes without blinking. "You are king," he said. "And kings who want to remain kings make decisions that keep their heads attached." Cersei Lannister's fingers whitened on her chair. "Jaime," she said again, pleading now, furious at herself for it. Tyrion Lannister exhaled slowly. "We propose an exchange," he said. "Both, Eddard Stark and Sansa Stark for Jaime Lannister." Joffrey Baratheon's mouth fell open. "No," he breathed, and the word was childish, immediate. Cersei Lannister's eyes widened. "Both?" she demanded. Tyrion Lannister's gaze held hers. "Both," he said, "because if we keep the girl, we keep the war. And if we keep the war, Stannis Baratheon comes like a knife in the dark." Peter Baelish's smile deepened. "And if you give them the girl," he murmured, "you lose your Stark key to the north." Tyrion Lannister looked at him with quiet contempt. "Keys can be remade," he said. Heads can't. Joffrey Baratheon slammed his fist down on the table. The goblets jumped. I won't, he hissed. I won't give them anything. I'll kill Eddard Stark and I'll. Cersei Lannister's hand snapped out and caught his wrist. Enough, she said, low and deadly. You will not speak of killing him until Jaime is in our hands. Joffrey Baratheon's eyes flared at his mother's grip, then darted toward Tyrion Lannister as if seeking an enemy he could strike. You're all cowards, he spat. Varys's voice was soft, almost sympathetic. Courage, he murmured, is not always loud, your grace. Tyrion Lannister picked up the parchment again and tapped it once against the table, making the inked demands tremble. We send terms, he said. A place, time, hostages on both sides, guarantees. And if they refuse? Cersei Lannister asked. Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted. Then we learn how much Tywin Lannister truly values his son, he said, and how much the realm values a living Eddard Stark. Outside the chamber, somewhere beyond stone and torch, the iron cage still sat in the courtyard's memory like a bruise. Tyrion Lannister could feel it even here, pressing at the edges of every choice. He sealed the reply with the lion and the stag and the lie they all pretended was solid. And as the wax cooled, he wondered whether he had just bought time, or merely delayed the moment the realm snapped. Tyrion Lannister came without ceremony, carrying a cup of wine and the weary look of a man who had been forced to herd wolves and lions into the same pen. He sat on the only chair in the room, legs braced, and regarded Eddard Stark as one might regard an old sword. Still dangerous, still valuable, but chipped by use. You've caused quite a stir, Tyrion Lannister said. Eddard Stark's chains clinked softly as he shifted on the pallet. I stood and spoke, he rasped. The stir was already there. Tyrion Lannister drank. Robb Stark has my brother, he said, as if saying it aloud made it more real. He sent terms.
Eddard Stark's gaze sharpened.
He wants me, he said. He wants you, Tyrion Lannister agreed. He wants Sansa Stark too.
Eddard Stark's throat tightened.
He will not stop fighting while you keep my daughter, he said, and the statement was both warning and plea. Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted. Yes, he said. It appears you've raised a son who understands leverage. Eddard Stark's eyes closed briefly. Pride and grief mixed until he could not tell one from the other. What will you do? He asked. Tyrion Lannister set his cup down. I convinced the council to propose a full exchange, he said. You and Sansa Stark for Jaime Lannister. Eddard Stark stared at him, disbelief and hope stabbing through the exhaustion like sudden fire. Cersei Lannister agreed? He asked. Tyrion Lannister snorted. She agreed because she is terrified, he said. And because she loves Jaime Lannister in the way some people love a limb, something they cannot imagine being without. And Joffrey Baratheon? Eddard Stark asked, and his voice hardened on the name. Tyrion Lannister's eyes flicked away for a moment. Joffrey Baratheon screamed, he said flatly, which is his usual answer to reality. Bronn chuckled softly in the corner. Tyrion Lannister ignored him. Eddard Stark's chains shifted as he leaned forward. If you can do this, he said, voice low, do it quickly. Tyrion Lannister studied him. You think the boy king will kill you if it drags, he said. Eddard Stark held his gaze. I think the boy king will kill me when his pride outweighs his fear, he answered. And his pride grows hungry. Tyrion Lannister's fingers drummed once against his cup. You're not wrong, he said. But there is another problem. Eddard Stark's eyes narrowed. Stannis Baratheon, he said. Tyrion Lannister's expression tightened. Whispers are moving, he admitted. And you are inconveniently alive. Eddard Stark's mouth tasted of old anger. I told the truth, he said, before I confessed. His voice caught, shame flaring. Before I broke myself on that September. Tyrion Lannister's gaze was sharp. If Stannis Baratheon marches, he said, and you are freed, you become a banner, a witness, A blade pointed at my nephew's throat. "My nephew is not the king," Eddard Stark said, and the words came out like a stone thrown. Bronze eyebrows lifted, amused. Tyrion Lannister's eyes went colder. "Say that too loudly," Tyrion Lannister warned, "and your daughter bleeds for it." Eddard Stark swallowed, the rage settling into something heavier. "That is why I have not screamed it from the walls," he said. "That is why I ate my honor on the September steps." Tyrion Lannister leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Then listen," he said quietly. "If we exchange you and Sansa Stark, the war changes shape. Robb Stark will have his father and sister. He may still fight. He may crown himself. He may ally with Stannis Baratheon. And if that happens, Eddard Stark said, voice low, then perhaps the realm will finally see what sits on the Iron Throne." Tyrion Lannister's smile was thin. "Perhaps," he said, "or perhaps it will drown in blood first." Eddard Stark stared at the parchment Tyrion Lannister had brought. Terms written neatly, official as a noose. "If you keep me," he said, "you keep the North's rage alive. If you free me, you risk Stannis Baratheon's claim sharpening. Either way, you bleed." Tyrion Lannister's eyes held a tired honesty. "Welcome to ruling," he said. Eddard Stark's chains clinked as he shifted again. "One thing," he said. "Promise me." Tyrion Lannister's brow lifted. "Promising is my sister's hobby," he said. "What do you want?" "If the exchange fails," Eddard Stark said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "If Joffrey Baratheon decides to kill me for sport, get Sansa Stark out. Get her out of that castle." Tyrion Lannister stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked away, jaw tight. "I'll try," he said, and the words sounded like a man admitting the limits of his power. Eddard Stark nodded once, because try was all any of them had left. When Tyrion Lannister rose to leave, he paused at the door. "Endure," he said again, softer this time. "If you die before the exchange, we all lose." Eddard Stark watched him go and felt the cruel irony. His life had become a piece on a board, kept alive not for mercy, not for justice, but because too many men needed him breathing. He lay back on the pallet and stared at the stone ceiling, listening to the Red Keep's distant noises. The shuffle of guards, the murmur of courtiers, the faint laughter of people who had never been caged. Endure, he told himself. Endure because somewhere a raven was flying and his son was bargaining with lions. Sansa Stark did not ask permission. She had learned that asking only told the Red Keep where to place the leash. She waited until the corridors thinned, until the court grew drunk on its own gossip and the guards at her door relaxed into boredom. Then she stepped out with her chin lifted, cloak drawn close, and the small piece of cloth hidden in her sleeve like a secret heartbeat. Ser Sandor Clegane followed because he was commanded to follow, but there was something else in the way he moved. An impatience, as if he hated being made to shepherd lambs through wolves. "Where are you going?" he asked, voice rough. "To pray," Sansa Stark lied, and hated that lying came easier now.
Ser Sande Clegane es Nortez.
"Pray to who?" he muttered. "The gods don't live in this castle." Sansa Stark kept walking. Her fingers tightened around the cloth in her sleeve. It was a scrap torn from her own gown, stained with a single drop of her blood where she had bitten her lip. It was small, meaningless, and yet she needed something to give her father that belonged to her, something that said, "I am real, I am still here." At the turn toward the lower chambers, Tyrion Lannister waited, arms folded, expression tight with irritation and concern he would never name. "I told you not to wander," he said.
Sansa Stark swallowed.
"I want to see him," she whispered. Tyrion Lannister's eyes flicked toward Ser Sandor Clegane, then back. "It's dangerous," he said. "Joffrey Baratheon's mood swings like a mace. If he thinks you've gone to comfort Eddard Stark, he'll punish you for it." Sansa Stark's voice trembled. "He punishes me anyway," she said. Tyrion Lannister's face softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "Quickly," he said and gestured. They moved down stone stairs that smelled of damp and old smoke. Sansa Stark's heart hammered with each step. Ser Sandor Clegane's boots thudded behind her like a countdown. At a small door guarded by 2 men, Tyrion Lannister spoke low and sharp. The guards hesitated, then stepped aside. The door opened. Eddard Stark sat on a pallet in the dim light, chains still on his wrists, but his face was cleaner than it had been in the cage. He looked up, and for a heartbeat he seemed not to breathe. "Sansa Stark," he rasped. Sansa Stark's tears came immediately, hot and shameful. She stepped forward and caught his hands through the chain slack, careful of the iron. His fingers were rough and cold. Alive. He was alive. "Father," she whispered, and the word cracked open something inside her. Eddard Stark's eyes searched her face as if memorizing it against the possibility of loss. "Are you hurt?" he demanded softly. Sansa Stark forced herself to shake her head, though her body remembered every slap, every threat, every humiliation like bruises under silk. "Not," she lied again, then swallowed. "Not badly." Eddard Stark's jaw tightened, the rage there so deep it barely moved his expression. "I'm sorry," he said, and the words were a wound. Sansa Stark shook her head fiercely. "Don't," she whispered. I'm trying to be clever like you said." Eddard Stark's gaze flicked briefly toward the doorway where Tyrion Lannister and Ser Sandor Clegane waited like silent sentinels. "There may be an exchange," he murmured.
Sansa Stark's breath hitched.
"Robb Stark," she whispered, hope flaring so bright it hurt. Eddard Stark nodded once. "He has Jaime Lannister," he said. "They may trade." Sansa Stark's fingers tightened on his. "Then I can go home," she breathed, and the words sounded like something from another life. Eddard Stark's voice was low. "If it happens," he said. "If." Sansa Stark pulled the small scrap of cloth from her sleeve and pressed it into his hand, closing his fingers around it like a prayer. "Keep it," she whispered, "so you know I'm real. So you know." Eddard Stark's throat worked. He nodded once, the cloth hidden in his fist like a tiny, stubborn light.
"Ser Sande Clegane's chieftain, uncomfortable."
Tyrion Lannister cleared his throat. "Time," he said. Sansa Stark leaned forward and pressed her forehead to her father's, just for a heartbeat. His skin was cool. His breath was real. "Live," she whispered, echoing what he had once told her without words. Eddard Stark's eyes closed briefly. "You too," he murmured. When Sansa Stark stepped back, she forced her face into composure again, because the castle punished softness. Tyrion Lannister led her out, Ser Sandor Clegane following. As the door shut behind her, Sansa Stark felt the corridor's air change, colder, heavier. But in her chest, beneath fear, something warmed, because she had touched her father's hands, and the Red Keep had not managed to make her forget what love felt like. Harrenhal swallowed men the way the sea swallowed ships, vast, indifferent, and haunted by the memory of fire. Its towers rose like broken teeth. The stones were blackened from dragon flame long dead, as if the castle had been punished once and would never be clean again. Tywin Lannister sat beneath lion banners as if the ruin belonged to him now, as if his will could fill even a place this scarred. The firelight gilded his pale hair and carved his face into something hard and unforgiving. The Maester read Robb Stark's terms, voice trembling slightly despite himself. In Harrenhal, even ink felt afraid. When the Maester finished, silence stretched.
"Ser Kevan Lannister's chieftain, careful."
"They have Jaime," he said softly. Tywin Lannister's eyes remained on the flames. "Yes," he said, and the single word held a continent of anger.
"Ser Kevan Lannister hesitated."
"They want Eddard Stark," he said. "And the girl." Tywin Lannister finally turned his head. His gaze was calm, and in that calm was something more terrifying than rage. "They want what they cannot have," he said.
"Ser Kevan Lannister hesitated."
"If we refuse," he said. "Jaime." Tywin Lannister's eyes sharpened. "If we refuse," he said, "we teach the realm that House Lannister does not bow because a boy with a direwolf seal makes demands."
"Ser Kevan Lannister swallowed."
And if they kill him? Tywin Lannister's jaw tightened, the smallest movement that betrayed the depth of what the question touched. Then they sign their own death warrant, he said, and everyone who supported them signs with them. The maester's hands shook so badly the parchment rustled. Tywin Lannister stood, slow and certain, like a mountain deciding to move. Robb Stark thinks he has found leverage, he said. He thinks a captive can force my hand. Ser Kevan Lannister watched him carefully. Jaime is not merely a captive, he said. He is your heir. Tywin Lannister's gaze pinned him. My heir is a man, he said. Mendy, House Lannister endures. Ser Kevan Lannister's face tightened, pain flickering behind loyalty. Cersei Lannister will not see it that way, he warned. Tywin Lannister's mouth twisted. Cersei Lannister sees the world through her own hungers, he said. That is why she does not rule. He turned toward the maester. Send word to King's Landing, Tywin Lannister commanded. Tell Tyrion Lannister to delay, to negotiate, to offer terms that waste time. Time is a blade, cuts both ways. The maester bowed, nearly dropping the parchment. Tywin Lannister's gaze moved to Ser Gregor Clegane. The Riverlands will pay, he said. Ser Gregor Clegane's mouth did not move, but the meaning was understood. And what of Eddard Stark? Ser Kevan Lannister asked, cautious. Tywin Lannister's eyes narrowed slightly. Eddard Stark alive is a complication, he said. Eddard Stark dead is a martyr. He paused, considering as if weighing coin. Eddard Stark broken, he said at last, is useful. Ser Kevan Lannister's voice was quiet. Can he be broken? Tywin Lannister stared into the fire. Everyone breaks, he said. Some simply take longer. Outside Harrenhal, the wind moaned through empty towers like a warning. Tywin Lannister did not look up. He was already turning the war into mathematics again. How much blood to spill, how much time to buy, how to make a boy king's cruelty serve House Lannister's survival. But when he was alone, when the hall's noise had faded, Tywin Lannister stood at a window and looked out at the dark. For a heartbeat his face was not a lord's mask but something older and harder, because somewhere far away, Jaime Lannister sat in chains, and the realm was daring Tywin Lannister to admit he had a heart. The lion's seal arrived days later, carried by a rider with dust on his cloak and fear in his eyes. Robb Stark broke the wax and read the reply with his mouth set hard. Tyrion Lannister's words were careful, wrapped in courtesy that smelled like a trap. A proposal of exchange, yes, but hedged with conditions, with guarantees, with demands for time. Place suggested. A neutral ground. A promise of safe conduct if both parties behaved with honor. Honor. The word made men laugh bitterly around the fire. Great John Umber spat into the dirt. They're stalling, he growled. Lions stall while they sharpen claws. Roose Bolton's pale eyes flicked over the parchment. Stalling buys them time to strike elsewhere, he said, or time to let the boy king's temper decide for them. Catelyn Stark held the letter as if it might burn her. Time is what Ned needs, she said fiercely. Time is what keeps him breathing. Great John Umber's face twisted. And time is what kills him, he snapped. Every day in that castle is another chance for that little monster to slit his throat. Robb Stark stared at the seal, at the lion pressed into wax like a brand. They want guarantees, he said, voice cold. They want control, Roose Bolton corrected softly. They want to choose the ground. They want to choose the moment. They want to decide whether to honor it. Catelyn Stark's gaze went to Jaime Lannister under guard nearby. The Kingslayer sat with his back against a post, chains on his wrists, still somehow amused. How do we force them? Robb Stark asked, and the question tasted like iron. Great John Umber's answer was immediate. We take more, he said. We hit their camps. We bleed them until they choke on their own pride. Roose Bolton's voice was quiet. We protect what we have, he said. Jaime Lannister is your only true leverage. If he escapes, Eddard Stark dies. The words sank like stones. Catelyn Stark stepped closer to Robb Stark, her voice low so only he could hear. "If the exchange happens," she murmured, "you must not let pride ruin it. You must not crown yourself before he is free."
Robb Stark's jaw tightened.
"I know," he said, though the knowledge tasted like surrender. Catelyn Stark's eyes shone. "Then we choose the ground," she said. "Not them. We send our own terms. We demand the exchange happen quickly. We demand Sansa Stark and your father be brought to the meeting under guard, not merely promised." Robb Stark stared at the river beyond the camp, dark and relentless. "And if they refuse?" Catelyn Stark's voice turned sharp. "Then we show them Jaime Lannister's blood," she said. "Not enough to kill him, enough to remind them he is not invincible."
Robb Stark flinched.
The idea of torturing a man sat wrong in him, even a man like Jaime Lannister. But he could see the truth in his mother's eyes. War was already torturing all of them. This would simply be honest about it. Roose Bolton watched them, expression unreadable. Great John Umber grinned, teeth bared. "Now you're speaking sense," he said. Robb Stark folded Tyrion Lannister's letter carefully. "We send our answer," he said. "We demand the exchange at the Ruby Ford. Within 10 days. No dilas." Catelyn Stark's breath caught. 10 days felt both impossibly fast and unbearably slow. Robb Stark's gaze lifted to the direwolf banner above his tent, snapping in the wind. "And we send another message," he said quietly. "A message they'll understand." He turned toward Jaime Lannister, walking across the camp with measured steps. Jaime Lannister looked up, chains rattling softly as he shifted. Robb Stark stopped in front of him. "You're going to write," he said. Jaime Lannister's smile widened. "To who?" he asked. "My sister? My father? The boy king in his crown?" "To all of them," Robb Stark said. "You'll tell them you are alive. You'll tell them you are treated well. And you'll tell them that if my father dies, you die." Jaime Lannister's eyes glittered. "Straight to the point," he said. "Very northern." Robb Stark's voice was flat. "I learned from the best," he said, thinking of a man in chains who still stood straight. Jaime Lannister's smile lingered, but something in it shifted recognition, perhaps, of the seriousness beneath the boy's calm. "Fine," Jaime Lannister said. "Give me your quill." As the ink touched parchment, Catelyn Stark stared into the fire and prayed to every god she could name that somewhere in King's Landing. Her husband still breathed, still endured, still waited for the moment the chains might finally loosen. Robb Stark did not wait for ink alone to do the work of steel. Words traveled on ravens. Fear traveled faster on horseback. 2 days after sending his Titan terms, he struck a Lannister supply column crawling along a muddy road like a wounded snake. Wagons creaked under grain and salted meat. Men marched with heads down, exhausted, thinking themselves safe in the rear of Tywin Lannister's war. They were wrong. The North erupted from the tree line in a surge of hooves and cold purpose. Rain fell in hard sheets, turning cloaks heavy and making the world smell of wet earth and iron. Robb Stark rode at the front, sword in hand. Gray wind ran alongside, silent and deadly, his fur slicked dark by rain. The direwolf did not howl. He did not need to. His teeth spoke for him. The Lannister soldiers scrambled into formation, shields raised, spears bristling. Panic flashed across faces when they saw the direwolf banner cutting through the rain. "Hold!" their captain shouted. "Hold!" The line broke anyway because men holding wagons in fear could not hold against wolves. Robb Stark's sword cut down the first man who rose to block him. The blade bit through leather and bone. Blood sprayed, hot even in rain, then was washed away to dark water in the ruts. A horse screamed and went down. A wagon wheel snapped. Grain spilled into mud like pale guts. Northern riders swarmed the wagons, dragging men off, binding wrists with rope, stripping weapons fast and efficient. There was no joy in it, no laughter, only necessity. Robb Stark saw a boy among the Lannister soldiers, barely old enough to shave, eyes wide with terror. The boy lifted his sword with shaking hands. Robb Stark's blade paused, inches from the boy's throat. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that face. Young, afraid human. "Drop it," Robb Stark ordered. The boy's hands trembled. Then the sword fell into mud with a soft splash. Robb Stark exhaled, a breath he did not know he was holding. He pointed. "Bind him," he commanded. A northern man grabbed the boy roughly, but Robb Stark's gaze snapped toward him. "Not like that," he said sharply. "We're not butchers." The man muttered but eased, binding the boy with less cruelty. Roose Bolton rode up through the rain, his expression calm despite the chaos. "Prisoners," he said, as if discussing livestock. "More leverage. More mouths." Great John Umber growled nearby, delighted and furious all at once. "Let them eat Lannister mud." Robb Stark stared at the captured wagons. "Send word," he said. "Every prisoner we take is another chain around their throat." Roose Bolton inclined his head. "And every raid we make," he murmured, "is another reason for them to harden."
Robb Stark's jaw tightened.
"Let them harden," he said, "so long as my father keeps breathing." As they set the wagons ablaze, after stripping what they could carry, smoke rose into the rain, black and stubborn. The fire hissed, fighting the water, refusing to die quickly. Robb Stark watched it and felt the war becoming what he feared. Not a clean battle, not a noble contest, but a grinding machine that turned men into tools and families into bargaining chips. And still he rode, because somewhere far away, a man sat in chains and endured, and Robb Stark would not let that endurance be wasted. The road north was supposed to be safer. That was what men told themselves when they left King's Landing behind. That the farther you walked from the Red Keep's shadow, the less likely it was to swallow you. But the war's shadow stretched longer than any castle's. Yoren led his recruits hard, pushing them through rain and mud, cursing when men lagged. Arya Stark, Arya, kept her head down and her eyes sharp. She listened for hoofbeats. She watched every hedge. She slept with her knife in her hand. It didn't save them. They reached a wooden holdfast at dusk, the kind of place built to keep wolves out and bandits at bay. The gates were shut. Smoke curled from the chimneys. A dog barked once, then went quiet. Yoren pounded on the gate. "Open," he shouted. "Night's watch." The gate cracked open just enough for a frightened face to peer out. "We've no room," the man said, voice shaking. The war can lick my arse," Yoren barked. "Open the bloody gate." It opened with a reluctant groan. They filed in, ragged boys, thieves, men who had chosen black to avoid a rope. Arya Stark slipped through with Gendry close behind, his hammer hanging at his side. Hot Pie whined softly, eyes wide. They had barely begun to settle when the hoofbeats came. Many, heavy, relentless. A horn sounded outside, low and threatening. Yoren's head snapped up. His face went hard. "Stay back," he growled, shoving boys toward the yard's center. "Arya, get down." Arya Stark's heart hammered. She ran to a stable corner, crouching behind a trough, knife drawn. Gendry moved beside her without a word, grip tightening on his hammer until his knuckles went white. The gate shuddered. A voice called from outside. "Open in the king's name." Yoren spat. "The king can choke," he shouted back. "Night's Watch has no king." The gate shook again, harder. Spears jabbed through cracks. Men screamed. The holdfast small guards panicked, trying to bar the doors with trembling hands. Then the gate splintered under a heavy blow, and Lannister men poured in with torches and steel. Their armor glinted wet in the torchlight. Their faces were hard, hungry, certain that victory meant taking whatever they wanted. The leader's cloak was crimson, soaked dark at the hem. "Night's Watch," the man sneered. "We're looking for a girl." Arya Stark's breath stopped. Her knife hand trembled, then steadied as anger flooded in. Yoren stepped forward, sword in hand. "You'll find no girl here," he said. "Just boys and black." The Lannister man's eyes narrowed. "We were told she cut her hair," he said. "We were told she runs like a rat." Yoren lifted his blade. "You'll have to cut through me," he said, And there was no bravado in it, only grim truth. The Lannister man smiled. Gladly, the first spear thrust came fast. Yoren twisted aside and slashed, opening a man's throat. Blood sprayed, bright against rain-slick wood. The yard erupted. Arya Stark surged from hiding, knife flashing toward a soldier's leg. The blade bit. The man screamed and stumbled. Gendry swung his hammer and crushed a helm with a sickening crack. For a heartbeat, they were winning, not because they were strong, but because the Lannister men had not expected teeth. Then numbers swallowed them. A torch swung close, heat washing over Arya Stark's face. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun and drove her knife upward, but the blade caught on leather and slid. The soldier backhanded her, and stars burst behind her eyes. "Arry!" Gendry shouted, hammer swinging wildly. Yoren roared, carving space, blood on his blade. "Run!" he bellowed. "Get out!" Arya Stark scrambled, dizzy, crawling under a wagon as boots thundered past. She saw Hot Pie dragged by his hair, crying. She saw Lami stabbed through the belly, eyes wide with shock. She saw Yoren fight like a cornered animal, refusing to die neatly. Then a boot hooked Arya Stark's ankle and yanked. She rolled out, knife raised, snarling. A soldier loomed over her, spear point at her throat. "Got you," he grinned. Arya Stark's eyes burned. She wanted to spit her true name in his face. She wanted to scream that her father was alive and caged and that she would kill every lion in the world to get to him. Instead, she clamped her mouth shut and let the rage live behind her teeth, because rage did not save you when steel was at your throat. The soldier hauled her up by her collar. "Boy!" he scoffed, then frowned, seeing something in her face. Or not. Gendry lunged, hammer raised, but 3 spears blocked him. He froze, chest heaving. Yoren stumbled, blood running down his arm. He looked at Arya Stark, at Arry, and something fierce and resigned passed between them. "Keep your mouth shut," Yoren rasped, and then a blade drove into his gut. Arya Stark screamed despite herself. The sound tore out of her like a wound. The Lannister men bound her wrists and shoved her toward the gate, toward the road, toward whatever cage waited next. As the holdfast burned behind them, Arya Stark stared at the flames and felt the world narrowing, again, into bars and chains and men who called cruelty law. But her rage did not die. It sharpened. Joffrey Baratheon's temper hit like hail. Sudden, sharp, and leaving bruises no one could see until it was too late. He raged in his chamber when word came that Robb Stark had struck another Lannister column, that prisoners had been taken, that the North's grip on Jaime Lannister was tightening instead of loosening. A goblet flew from his hand and shattered against the wall, wine dripping like blood down stone. "He thinks he can threaten me," Joffrey Baratheon snarled. "A northern boy. A wolf pup." Sansa Stark stood near the window, hands clasped tight, trying to become invisible. Her breath came shallow. She knew the pattern. Anger sought a target. Joffrey Baratheon turned toward her, eyes bright with cruelty. "Smile," he commanded. "Smile and tell me how grateful you are that I spared your father." Sansa Stark forced her lips into a tremor of a smile. "I am grateful," she whispered, and the lie tasted like broken glass. Joffrey Baratheon stepped closer, hand lifting as if to strike. "Louder," he hissed. The door opened abruptly, and Tyrion Lannister strode in like a man who had run out of patience and did not care who saw it. Behind him, Ser Sandor Clegane lurked, and Ser Meryn Trant stood stiff with dull obedience. Tyrion Lannister's gaze took in the broken goblet, the wine on the wall, Sansa Stark's pale face. His mouth tightened. "Your Grace," Tyrion Lannister said, voice sharp with forced courtesy. "I need you to stop behaving like a child." Joffrey Baratheon's face contorted. "I am the king," he spat. Tyrion Lannister stepped between Joffrey Baratheon and Sansa Stark without hesitation. "Then act like one," he said. "Kings do not throw tantrums because a boy in the woods took their uncle." Joffrey Baratheon's hand curled into a fist. "He took him because you're weak," he snarled. "Because you want to bargain." Because you're afraid. Tyrion Lannister's eyes flashed. I'm afraid of stupidity, he said. And you are drenched in it. Joffrey Baratheon's mouth fell open, affronted. Then his face twisted into delight, because insult could be turned into cruelty. Ser Meryn Trant, Joffrey Baratheon said, voice sweet. Teach my lady what happens when people displease their king. Sansa Stark's stomach dropped. She barely had time to inhale before Ser Meryn Trant stepped forward, hand raising. Tyrion Lannister moved faster than Sansa Stark expected. His hand shot out and caught Ser Meryn Trant's wrist mid-swing. The knight froze, shocked. Tyrion Lannister's voice was low and dangerous. Touch her, he said, and you'll find out what happens when you displease the hand. Ser Meryn Trant's eyes flicked to Joffrey Baratheon, unsure. Joffrey Baratheon's face flushed purple. Let go, he hissed at Tyrion Lannister. He obeys me. Tyrion Lannister released Ser Meryn Trant slowly, then turned back to Joffrey Baratheon. You want to hit someone? He said. Hit me. Joffrey Baratheon's eyes widened with furious delight. Gladly, he snapped. He swung. Tyrion Lannister caught the boy's wrist with one hand, stopping the blow easily. Joffrey Baratheon struggled, face contorted, humiliated by his own weakness. Tyrion Lannister leaned in close, voice like a blade scraping bone. If you harm Sansa Stark, he whispered, you make Eddard Stark's death inevitable. And if Eddard Stark dies, Robb Stark kills Jaime Lannister. And if Jaime Lannister dies, your mother will never forgive you, and your grandfather will tear the city apart to keep the name Lannister clean. Joffrey Baratheon's breath came fast. He wouldn't, he spat, but his eyes flicked toward the door as if seeking his mother's confirmation. As if summoned by that fear, Queen Cersei Lannister swept into the chamber, her face calm and furious at once. She took in the scene. Tyrion Lannister holding Joffrey Baratheon's wrist, Sansa Stark pale near the window, the broken goblet. What is this? Cersei Lannister asked softly. Joffrey Baratheon jerked his arm free, seething. He insulted me, he cried. He thinks he can order me. Cersei Lannister's gaze locked on Tyrion Lannister. Can you? She asked. Tyrion Lannister held her stare. I can keep your son alive, he said, which seems to be something no one else in this castle is interested in doing. Cersei Lannister's lips tightened. Leave, she said to Sansa Stark. Sansa Stark did not move at first, stunned by the storm. Then Ser Sandor Clegane nudged her gently with a gloved hand, and she stumbled out, heart hammering, the corridor swallowing her like a throat. Behind her, voices rose. Cersei Lannister's controlled fury, Joffrey Baratheon's shrill pride, Tyrion Lannister's sharp contempt. Sansa Stark walked faster, because she had learned that when lions fought, lambs were crushed beneath their feet. Varys came late, when the Red Keep's corridors were quiet and even the guards' muttering had softened into weary boredom. He slipped into Eddard Stark's room like smoke, carrying something small in his hand. A gift, Varys murmured, as if offering sweets. Eddard Stark sat up on the pallet, chains clinking. His eyes narrowed. You don't give gifts, he rasped. Varys smiled, unoffended. No, he agreed. I trade. He held out the small roll of parchment. It was no official letter, no wax-sealed demand. It looked almost like nothing, thin, easily hidden, easily destroyed. What is it? Eddard Stark asked. A message, Varys said softly. One that could make men move. Eddard Stark's throat tightened. To who? He demanded, though he already knew. Varys's eyes gleamed. Dragonstone listens, he murmured, and Dragonstone believes itself righteous. Eddard Stark stared at the parchment as if it were a knife. If Stannis Baratheon marches, he said, voice low, Joffrey Baratheon will take it out on Sansa Stark. Varys inclined his head. Yes, he said gently, that is the problem with righteousness. It tends to trample children. Eddard Stark's hands clenched. Then why bring this to me? He snapped. Why tempt me with a truth that will kill my daughter? Varys stepped closer, voice dropping. Because the truth is already moving, he said. Because letters have already flown. Because Lord Stannis Baratheon will declare, with or without you.
Eddard Stark's breath hitched.
Then what do you want? He demanded. Varys' smile softened, almost sad. I want the realm to survive, he said. And I want your daughter to survive. Those two wants do not always share a bed. Eddard Stark stared at him, anger and exhaustion twisting together. If the exchange happens, he said, I can take Sansa Stark away. I can keep her safe. I can. Varys' eyes held his. If, he echoed. And if the exchange fails? If Tywin Lannister decides his son is expendable? If Joffrey Baratheon decides his pride is worth more than any bargain?
Eddard Stark's jaw tightened.
He could see it. A boy king's rage, a blade, Sansa Stark screaming. He could see the realm cracking wider. Varys held out the parchment again. This message, he said, does not need to be shouted, can be whispered, can be carried in a pocket. It can be delivered when it is safe. When is it safe?
Eddard Stark demanded bitterly.
Varys' smile thinned. Never, he admitted, but sometimes necessary. Eddard Stark's hands shook as he took the parchment. He hated that they shook. He hated that fear could reach into him like this. He unrolled it carefully. The words were brief, coded enough to deny if caught, clear enough to understand if read by the right eyes. A reminder of a book, of lineage, of a truth Eddard Stark had once spoken to Robert Baratheon and then buried under duty. Eddard Stark's throat worked. If I send this, he said, voice rough, I make myself a weapon. Varys' eyes were kind and terrible. You already are, he murmured. You simply haven't chosen which hand holds you. Eddard Stark stared at the parchment until the ink blurred. He thought of Robb Stark riding through rain and blood, clutching leverage like a lifeline. He thought of Sansa Stark's pale face, trying to smile through threats. He thought of Arya Stark somewhere in the world, alive or dead, lost in smoke and steel. He rolled the parchment tight again, hiding it in his palm. How? He asked finally. How does it leave this castle? Varys' smile widened a fraction. There are always cracks, he said. A hooded man who owes me, a raven that flies at the right hour, a pocket that is never searched because no one imagines it holds anything important. Eddard Stark's eyes hardened. If this kills my daughter, he said, voice low, I will haunt you. Varys bowed his head, solemn. Then I hope, he murmured, that your daughter lives to curse me herself. When Varys left, the room felt smaller. Eddard Stark lay back and stared at the ceiling again, the parchment hidden against his skin like a burning coal. Truth,
Honor,
family,
va.
He had always believed those words could stand together. Now he understood the realm had forced them into a circle, and he was trapped in the middle, trying to choose which one would not die. The raven arrived at midday, and the throne room changed with it. A messenger crossed the floor on trembling legs and presented the blackbird's tube to the dais. Joffrey Baratheon snatched it like a child grabbing a toy, broke the seal and read. His face shifted. Confusion first, then anger, then something sharper. Fear dressed as fury. He dares, Joffrey Baratheon breathed. Cersei Lannister leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What? She demanded. Joffrey Baratheon crumpled the parchment in his fist, then flung it at the steps. Stannis Baratheon, he spat, voice rising. He calls me a bastard. He calls me. A murmur ran through the room like a sudden wind. Courtiers exchanged glances. Some lowered their eyes. Some whispered prayers. Even the Iron Throne seemed to listen. Tyrion Lannister stood rigid, jaw clenched. Varys watched with calm interest, as if the raven had brought him confirmation of a bet he'd already won. Peter Baelish's smile deepened, delighted by chaos. Cersei Lannister's face went pale beneath its composed mask. For a heartbeat, she looked like a woman who had been punched. Then the queen returned, all steel. Silence, she hissed to the room, but whispers do not die because a queen commands it. Joffrey Baratheon's eyes flared. "He's lying," he shouted. "He's a traitor. I'll have his head." Tyrion Lannister's voice cut in, sharp and cold. "You can't have his head," he said. "He's on Dragonstone behind walls and ships, and while you scream, the realm listens." Joffrey Baratheon spun on him. "You think I'm afraid?" he shrieked. "I'll show them. I'll show them all." He turned, eyes wild, and pointed toward the doors. "Bring Eddard Stark," he commanded. "Bring him here. He'll tell them I'm king. He'll kneel and he'll say it. And if he won't..." Cersei Lannister's voice was low and urgent. "Not yet," she said. "Not until Jaime is." "Jaime Lannister is a prisoner," Joffrey Baratheon snapped, and the words dripped contempt. "Eddard Stark is my prisoner. I'll use mine." Tyrion Lannister stepped forward, voice tight. "If you drag Eddard Stark into this," he warned, "you make him a witness, not a hostage. You give Stannis Baratheon something sharper than ink." Joffrey Baratheon's face twisted. "Then I'll cut out his tongue," he hissed. "I'll cut off his head. I'll..." Cersei Lannister rose abruptly, the movement slicing through the room like a drawn sword. "Enough," she said, voice dangerously controlled. "You will not act like a frightened boy in front of the court." Joffrey Baratheon's eyes blazed at her. "I am the king," he screamed, and the words cracked with desperation. The court's whispers thickened. Fear could smell fear. Peter Baelish's voice drifted, mild. "Perhaps," he murmured, "a public show of strength would steady the city." Tyrion Lannister shot him a look. "Or ignite it," he snapped. Varys's hands folded neatly. "The people love certainty," he said softly, "even when it is false." Joffrey Baratheon latched onto the idea like a drowning man grabbing driftwood. "Yes," he said, "a show. A spectacle. Eddard Stark will kneel before me again. Sansa Stark will stand beside me and thank me. The city will see. The realm will see." Cersei Lannister's eyes narrowed. "If you frighten the girl," she warned, "you lose what makes her useful." Joffrey Baratheon's smile turned cruel. "She'll behave," he said. "She always does." Tyrion Lannister's mouth tightened. He could already see the disaster forming. The boy kings need to prove himself, the court's hunger for drama, the city's simmering anger, Stannis Baratheon's declarations spreading like wildfire. He stepped closer to Cersei Lannister, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Keep him from killing Eddard Stark," he said. "If Eddard Stark dies now, Robb Stark kills Jaime Lannister. And if Jaime dies, you lose your mind and father loses his heir, and the realm loses whatever thin thread is holding it together." Cersei Lannister's eyes flicked to him, hard. "And if Eddard Stark lives," she whispered back, "Stannis Baratheon gains a witness." Tyrion Lannister's gaze held hers. "Then we make sure the witness never speaks in a way that matters," he said. "Not until Jaime is home." Cersei Lannister's jaw clenched. She looked past Tyrion Lannister to Joffrey Baratheon, already barking orders, already imagining a crowd that would make him feel like a god. "Summon the court," Joffrey Baratheon shouted. "Summon the city. They will see their king today." As guards hurried out, the throne room filled with a restless hum. Courtiers whispered sharper now. Somewhere beyond the walls, the city waited like dry tinder. And deep inside the Red Keep, Eddard Stark sat on a pallet with a hidden parchment burning against his skin, while above him a boy king prepared a spectacle to prove himself, unaware that every spectacle he staged only tightened the noose around his own throat.